What's up, you fuckers? How you doing? Sam just gave me the worst countdown in the history of countdowns. Are you
Perfect.
pissed?
It's perfect.
It had 5 twos in it. What the fuck? Anyway, welcome to another episode of Trash Talk. It's getting close to Christmas, so it's time to be fucking festive as fuck. Which is why this episode of the show is called Jingle Bell Ends. And just in case you're new and you're tuning in to Trash Talk for the first time, in which case we don't want you here, fuck off. But just in case that doesn't put you off, what this is it's a phone-in, like you get in sports, where people phone in, talk to me, tell me their opinions, I talk over them, tell them why my opinion's right, and then they agree with me and we move on to somebody else. That's basically the format of the show. Usually, we give a massive list of potential topics, but this being a Christmas special, anything goes. We've managed to get through the entire show's history without being trolled, which I'm absolutely astounded about. Maybe tonight will be the night where the trolls, run rampant. Couple of things that I want to do just before we get into it. And the first thing is I'm always looking for, funny videos and whatnot on the internet. And a friend of mine linked me to a video that said, perfectly sums up my esports career to date. There's two people involved in the video. For the purposes of the metaphor, I will tell you I am in the white. Sam, roll the vid.
You know you're finished.
No, you're gonna die with the evidence.
All right? Fight to the death, then.
Prepare to die, bastard. You bastard! Prepare to die!
And that, my friends, is why you don't bring a shotgun to an exploding sword fight. don't fuck around with an esports journalist. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that little interlude. We're not filling time at all, I promise. We have actually got lots to talk about today, but the first thing I want to do, just to do my own little announcement without that glorious video, is to talk about the kind of demise, I suppose would be a way to put it, a tribute, an obituary to the esports career of one Anne Pragg. And she's made an announcement today saying that she's going to be withdrawing from all forms of social media. This includes as well Skype, everything. She's going to completely remove herself from esports. And she says it's to, focus on her career and not have any distractions. On the one hand, yeah, that makes sense. In fact, I would go as far as to say I wish I'd had the discipline and the courage to do the same before I got into esports and ended up the wretched creature that you see before you. But I can't help but feel as well that she's effectively been driven out of esports because, well, she made the fatal error that we've all made of having, at some point, and that is how dare we have an opinion. And this is somebody who has been attacked in some of the most vicious ways I've seen both on Reddit and Twitter recently, simply for stating her opinion. And in particular, the League of Legends community has acted absolutely fucking disgracefully towards her. I mean, some of the posts I've seen, like just recently, she was called a whore, an attention-seeking whore, for expressing her opinion about the single rule and whether or not it would graduate to China. So hang on, Sam, what are you doing? I'm trying to give a heartfelt speech.
I'm not doing anything.
I'm hearing echoes, motherfucker.
Right.
Yeah. Put the pot noodle down. Right. So she has been, in my opinion, driven out of the community, although I'm pretty sure she would never admit it. And while I think it's probably too late to change her mind or to take things back, I gotta say that it's only a matter of time before you people out there start driving more high profile people out of this fucking industry with your inability to accept people's fundamental right to an opinion. I find it fucking hilarious in a bad way that what you guys cannot do is allow somebody in a place of prominence, somebody who's getting attention, to have an opinion and to express that opinion. If you don't like it or disagree with it, state the opposite of that opinion and then just move the fuck on with your life. You don't need to hound anybody. You don't need to harass anybody. And I find it this massive hypocritical standpoint to have, because if anyone was to censor your fucking opinions out there, you anonymous fucks that like to attack people from behind a internet alias, if anyone was to censor your opinion, you go fucking insane about it. You would tell all and sundry, you would lobby your politicians, you would fucking, you would write to anybody, you would to get that overturned, so you have the right to express your opinion. So why is it that somebody that's not hiding behind an alias can't do that? Why? I do not fucking understand it. And it drives me insane to see somebody who was very well informed about the esports community, very well informed about League of Legends, somebody that expressed their opinions in a very articulate and funny way, effectively pushed out of the community because a bunch of butthurt fucking retards, the vast majority of them virgins, can't take the fact that there's a smart, opinionated woman on the fucking internet. And people should know about me. I'm as far from social justice warrior as you can get. But it is absolutely fucking ridiculous. So stick it up your fucking ass. The Reddit mods and the people at Twitter that allow this harassment to go on ought to be fucking ashamed of themselves. And I just think it's a real fucking shame and a loss for the community. And I wish you all the best. I know you're going to do very well for yourself in life and you will pay this no fucking mind, but it certainly angered the fuck out of me. Anyway, on to tonight's trash talk. We've got lots to talk about, but since I've already had a bit of a rant and a funny video, we'll just go straight into a call. So, Sam, who have we got and what the fuck do they want to talk about?
First, we have Garett Davis, and he basically said he wants to talk about Riot versus the world. P.S. Fuck you. So, I don't know if that's to me or you.
Let's see then. Let's find out. So, Garett. Hello, Garett.
Hey Richard, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. So I understand you've got lots of points to make, but let's get to the bottom of who the fuck you was aimed at first. Is it aimed at me? Is it aimed at the listeners? Is it aimed at Sam?
It's just in general to the non-Riot community. Because
Okay.
here's the deal. Riot
Okay.
has come into the West like a sheriff into the Old West and said, here's the law, you're going to follow it.
Right.
Whether or not, we can debate all day whether or not Riot's policies and their rule changes are good or bad, but the reality is, they're stunting growth outside of League of Legends.
So you think Riot are bad for the esports industry as a whole?
I think they're doing good things, but I think the fact that it's one company doing it is bad. If this were Valve doing it, I'd have the exact same opinion.
So, okay, well, let's elaborate on that thought. What are the things that you think Riot are doing effectively to, hold back the growth of esports rather than, they're growing League of Legends, they're growing their game, but according to you, they're not particularly growing the whole industry. What would you say their biggest crimes are, if you like?
The biggest crime I see that Riot's committing is how much time of the year is the LCS. And this is gonna sound weird, but let's look at all the other major quote-unquote real-world sports. There is
Yep.
a very clear on-season and off-season where we have enough time for other events to have their own seasons and leagues. This doesn't happen in esports and is one of the biggest problems, and it leads to this oversaturation drama we see today in Dota 2 and CS:GO.
So again, I'm kind of failing to see.
Okay, so let me explain
problem.
Let me
Please
explain
do, yeah.
further. Right now, it's esport competing against esport. There isn't room, really, for there to be 2 or 3 big games. Just whether or not this is a fact of there's not enough viewers, or the fact that companies don't want to give up market share, I don't know, because I don't have the data. But what I can say is the fact that there has always been historically one major esport game and then a couple of smaller ones is holding back the idea of multiple big games that can persist for a while.
Okay, I'm with you. So, what would you think could be better? Because the LCS season does take breaks. It revolves around a Thursday to Sunday schedule. There's plenty of other days around
And Wednesday
that.
now. Don't
Oh,
forget,
and Wednesday.
and Wednesday.
My bad. I do apologize. So it's got a fairly it's going to be X amount of weeks before the season starts. It's going to build to a crescendo. Then there's going to be a break, a little off season between splits, and generally, what we're starting to see now is League of Legends are kind of trying to work in other big events into their gaps around their calendar. Intel Extreme Masters is back and it's got Cologne, San Jose. I'm sure there's going to be other events announced in 2015.
But that's another problem. Riot's policy of no competing storylines. The idea that the LCS journey or the OGN journey from the start of the year to Worlds has to be the one major plot line we're following.
Right.
And that these IEM tournaments, we're never going to see this great international competition we had once again in Season 1 and Season 2 because it holds back the hype for Worlds. And that's inherently anti-Riot for them to do so. Which is where there's an advantage in the CS:GO and the Dota style. The issue is, without a league system, they can't be held equally in terms of viewership or numbers to League of Legends.
Well,
And I
yeah,
think-
I'm kind of starting to get what you're saying now. But I mean, do Riot need? Does it make sense for a company to sort of try and factor in other things? For example, I'm sure a lot of people have leveled this at Valve around their handling of the international in Dota. I'm sure lots of people have said the way that it's kind of a bit clandestine in the build up to it, and then it interferes with other events. We saw, I think MLG had to cancel an event because it was too close to the international, and that was a big deal for MLG. So Riot aren't just the only company that are perhaps a little bit guilty of tunnel vision and not thinking about the esports industry as a whole. My question to you is, do they need to? Ultimately, they've got to think about their own product first and foremost.
Well, here's tinfoil hat time. I think Riot
Okay.
is preparing for when League of Legends is no longer a big game. I think we're going to see a spin-off of Riot Esports from Riot Games, and they're
Hmm.
going to become like this majority esport provider. Because if you look at their actions historically from Season 1 till now, they aren't trying to build League of Legends into an esport. They're trying to build an esport monolith that they can drag and drop any game into. And what this means is, I don't think this year, I don't think next year, we're going to see Riot like loosen up on the LCS, but I think we're actually going to see shorter seasons because
Hmm.
this might encourage new games to come in. Because League of Legends isn't going to stay for 10, 20 years. I know that, you know that, Riot knows that.
Hmm.
They have a plan, and everyone likes to give them crap for just going minute by minute by minute. But what if they're planning really far into the future? Which is why suddenly the LCS system now looks a lot better than the current Dota 2 and CSGO scene.
Hmm. So this is the thing I don't understand. Riot have said they'll never make a sequel to League of Legends, which definitely feeds into your idea that the game's going to be around for a long time, possibly even another decade. Which, by the way, would give it an unprecedented shelf life in the esports space. But we also know they've tried to develop other games, and they've also said they're going to develop other games. Why then do you think they would effectively sacrifice that those desires, that project, and eventually take a backward step from League of Legends when it starts to dwindle to become what sounds almost like a management solution for existing esports companies, of which there are numerous ones in the esports space anyway, and ones I would argue that would be better equipped than Riot to provide a service for anyone who wanted to run an esports season.
Here's why. And it's
Okay.
a problem plaguing both Blizzard and Valve right now. They
Mm.
would have to compete against themselves. Let's compare Dota 2 to CSGO. Right
Mhm.
now, esports isn't as big enough of a scene where you can be a fan of the MOBA genre and of the FPS genre and of the card game genre without blocking yourself from other esports due to time constraints or just due to you can't follow the scene as well.
Mm.
And if Riot comes out with a new game 10 years from now and tries to turn it into a bigger esport than League ever got to, they have to fight with all the progress they made towards League to
Mm.
make their new game better.
Okay, but that would be certainly preferable, I would argue, than having to fight a rival game, a rival company that you have no influence over. At least if it's your product, and it's like, well,
See, but
it,
that's the thing.
mm,
You don't have to compete as Riot against Dota 2.
mm,
Just the way the MOBA genre is,
mhm,
you're not going to get someone, or you're not going to get a large amount of people to just jump ship one day and completely relearn a new game.
mm,
Your competition is against the FPSs. So if you give them time to where they can have their on moment when it's during your off moment, no longer are you competing for their eyes, which is where Riot's shifting to. And if Valve implements a league system for CSGO or for Dota, that would be the biggest step forward in esports since the
mm,
LCS system, pardon me, for League of Legends, except it would be a new magnitude.
mm. So I got to ask because I'm curious. I'll be honest with you, Garrett. I'm not feeling it. I don't quite see it. And that isn't to say that you're not right or your opinion's not valid. But I mean, it sounds a little bit overly complex for what I believe Riot want to achieve, and that is ultimately they've wanted to use the massive amount of investment capital that they had to create almost like an unprecedented esports league, something comparable to a mainstream sports broadcast experience, and something that would create an aspirational element to their free-to-play game, which is that if you play long enough and hard enough, you can go pro, and it can actually be not just hugely lucrative, but it can be very affirming in terms of the status that you achieve. You know, there's a lot of guys who I'm sure who play professional League of Legends would never get a girl look at them twice if it wasn't for the fact they had loads of elo. So, you know, Riot have provided lots of solutions for bedroom-ridden virgins, you know, so that's good of them. So I got to say, I'm kind of, I don't know if Riot would necessarily want to deconstruct that. They sit at the top of the mountain right now in terms of what people have been able to offer for that league, that esports league experience. I think the international by Valve is obviously akin to a Super Bowl. The record number of prize money, it always gets it talked about every year. But what Riot have created for me is a far greater achievement in a way, because it's a consistent professional league.
And I don't disagree with you. I think Riot has really done a lot of great things for esports, more than any other developer. I'd go so far as to say that. But I also think that Riot isn't inherently a competitive company. And this is going to sound weird to say, but if you look at all their business decisions, they haven't been trying to shut out Valve or shut out Blizzard from the esport marketplace. They're really focused, or at least a large portion of Riot corporate is focused on just esports in general and how to make it better. And I think if they... Oh, go ahead.
No, okay, well, what I was just going to say was, actually, history, that might be the case now, Garrett, but history doesn't bear that out at all. In fact, one of the reasons so many Dota fans have a huge distaste for Riot is some of their early tactics when they were trying to position themselves not just as a MOBA game, but actually as the replacement for Dota. We all know
and
about
this
the
goes
Dragon
right
incidents.
back to this, what I called in about. PS, fuck you. This is Riot's, we're doing great things for esports, but we're going to make sure you know it's us doing it. And we're going to let other companies come in. I think Riot's not insane enough to think they'll be the only player in the esports market forever. But what they're going to do is make sure the fist bump logo is everywhere. When you think esports, you think Riot Games first. You think Riot Games in association with Valve, in association with ESEA, in association with StarLadder. This is where they want to see esports. And they're willing to step on toes to get there.
Okay.
I don't
So,
think
look, just final question, because obviously we've got lots of calls to get through. I got to ask you, Garrett, what do you think the end game, the actual end game for Riot is? Because based on what you're saying, it kind of feels a little bit like you're saying they don't want to drive other companies out. And again, I apologize if I'm not quite following the point.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it says on the one hand that they don't want to drive other companies out of the esports space. They don't want to crush them. But what you're saying is they want League of Legends to be completely front and center up until a point, and to overtake all of the esports and to not cooperate with any other esports up until a point where they're ready to implement their next game or become this esports consultancy you're talking about. So
exactly.
I have understood it.
Yeah, Riot is going to be Riot Games and everyone else until people stop caring about Riot, and then it's going to be Riot Games is the reason everyone else existed. They're creating a legacy, whether we like it or not, but that's what's happening.
Okay, well, Garrett, what I'll do is I'll try and bring in some of the callers who can maybe argue some counterpoints to that. I think it's a very bold claim, but I will certainly thank you for calling in, and you're more than welcome to call in. Hey, at any time, brother. You're more than welcome to call back any other time. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, you too.
Take care. So, Sam, you're echoing again.
Am I? I don't think I am from the stream.
Oh, if it's not for the stream, then that's all right. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, so there you go. That was Garrett Davis calling in to basically say that he thinks Riot have got some kind of crazy Machiavellian plan going on. I'm not too sure I agree with that. I think it's inarguable, in my opinion, that Riot have done a lot for the growth of esports. They've done a lot of things within that growth that I certainly disagree with, but more people know what esports is thanks to Riot Games, thanks to the success of League of Legends. So I'm not too sure I agree with Garett's conspiracy theory. Sam, do you have any thoughts about it?
Well, it just sounds like a regular business practice to me. Like, his argument was basically Riot wants to be the biggest esport, the best esport, until they want to change. Well, if I'm a fucking carpet layer, I want to be the best carpet layer until I don't want to be a carpet layer anymore. Just seems
take
like
it easy, Sam. Don't reach for the stars, mate. You've got a long way to go before you can fucking lay carpet. Come on.
I lay the fuck out of a carpet, son. Alright.
Oh my god! But yeah, look, if you've got a disagreement with anything Garett said, you're more than welcome to call in and make that point. All you got to do is add call.trashtalk on Skype, and we'll take the call. I also, because it's the Christmas special, I will do a shout out to someone who says Richard Lewis, big fan. Would love a shout out on air. So that's half a daddy. Half a daddy. It sounds like, you know, like my father was in some horrible industrial accident, and it's like, you know, because I was a child and I've managed to incorporate that into my worldview, I call him half a daddy, half a daddy. It's horrible. It's just horrible. Like, he's got no legs and just, you know, motorized from the waist down. But okay, half a daddy, you're all right. So yeah, let's get another caller. Anyone else wearing tinfoil tonight, Sam?
No, next we have Squirtle, and he wants to talk about competitive Halo, how it died, and how it could be rebuilt using the League format. And this is my first esports, so much love to this guy. God bless you.
Listen to you. God bless you. Sound like Cutie Pie.
I'm just extremely religious man. He's fucked us.
Has he fucked us? Has he?
Give him a sec. He seemed very excited.
I'll wait for Halo talk because I know fuck all about it. I've got my one little bit of trivia, and that was that the MLG winners got put on the Dr. Pepper cans.
Alright. I thought you were just going to say Adderall.
Well, yeah, and I've been researching an article about the rampant Adderall use in that particular scene, which I am going to write one day. Should we give him another go?
Give him 5 more seconds, and then he's gone. See, he tries to talk about how to bring Halo to life, and then he fucking kills it himself.
This is what I mean. This is why we can't bring Halo life. You motherfuckers can't even phone in or fucking phone in. It's hardly a fucking, you know, organised revolution, is it?
Alright, he's gone.
We'll get back to him later. So who else have we got?
Now we're going to talk to Hein, and he wants to compare footballing to League. And in this example he gave, he wants to compare Niklas Bendtner to Forgiven. I don't know how this works. So
this is like some cut rate Thorin shit. Okay, I'm in for my sports analogies. Hello, can you hear me?
Let's just call it off. Fuck it. There we go.
Here we go.
Hello?
Yes.
There we go.
Right, so Niklas Bendtner, someone who I think is one of the shittest footballers I've ever seen with my own eyes, apart from that one season he had on loan with Birmingham under Steve Bruce when he seemed half decent. You're comparing him to Forgiven, who I think's one of the really strong technical AD carries that probably has been held back a little bit by personality issues and clashes with teammates rather than natural ability. I'm strapped into my chair. I really want to hear this. Go.
All right, mate. You see, Forgiven, he only had one split in the Copenhagen Wolves, where he proved what he got.
Yeah?
Now, he hasn't played since then. That's over a year ago. You have no clue of how good he actually is now. And now you consider him without actually having any facts of him being a top-tier AD carry. You actually just consider him a top-tier AD carry. It's basically like Niklas Bendtner in the fact that he wants to play Champions League football, and he does not have the skill to play there. Just like Forgiven, he wanted to play in a top league team who could challenge for Worlds, but he couldn't. Or maybe he does not have the skill to do it.
Well, I mean, okay, so tell me why you think he doesn't have the skill. Because we've seen measurable success. You know, he in that split he had with Copenhagen Wolves. I don't think anybody said, Forgiven was the problem. In fact, Forgiven was the guy who, more often than not, even when they lost games, he always won lane comfortably, always seemed to, carry that bot lane. And he just couldn't make it transition into carrying the team because we all know how hard that can be as an AD carry in kind of the modern game. So do you think Forgiven has the skill?
Yeah, that's you. I think you understand me wrong. Or understood me wrong.
So what you're saying, Forgiven does have the skill, and he isn't like Niklas Bendtner.
No, I'm just comparing the actual concept.
Right. Okay.
What if he actually just lost some of his skill and then he went to SK, who is a potential world candidate for next year, who did very well this spring?
Well, I think this is like a greatly overstated thing. Like, for starters, skill is never going to be a constant in a game like League of Legends because the meta and the game itself and the mechanics of the game change consistently around it. So because of that, you can be a god on one patch and then you can just get fucked hard, you know? I mean, like, I'm thinking of Void Boy here, where Riot pretty much single-handedly nerfed his entire fucking champ pool, like, seemingly overnight. And that led him, take champs that he wasn't overly comfortable on. And in having to concentrate on non-comfort picks, he started making bad decision-making. And ultimately, he wasn't the same player anymore. I mean, when he was playing in top lane, everybody knows how good he was. He would wreck people with Olaf. He was unbelievable. So, over time, you can be the same player, have the same mechanical level. In fact, over time, your mechanics should get better the more you practice. I don't buy into this, like, you've got this tiny little window where your reflexes are good. It's overstated, that point, that you're washed up at 24 in a game like League of Legends. I don't necessarily believe it.
Maybe you understood me wrong again. Maybe
No. I'm just making my own point here. I'm just making my own point.
Okay.
This is a side topic.
All right.
So, I'm going to tie it into the main thing now, and that is to say that I think Forgiven probably has maintained a consistent level of skill. I actually think he'll be good enough, if not better. We can see an example of players that have got worse and players that have got better over time without even a lot of practice. I'm thinking about my co-host on First Blood, Nintendude, who was godlike in the jungle for Fusion. Like, I couldn't even believe it was the same player. Like, no joke.
Yeah, of course.
He was unbelievably good. He wasn't enough to carry his team, but he even said himself, that's the best I've played in my career. And this is a guy who dropped out of LCS, was derided for being one of the worst junglers to have played in LCS, has been playing Challenger, mostly solo queue, because he hasn't even been affiliated with a constant team, and then gets this shot with Fusion and is absolutely brilliant. Like, the best I've ever seen him. So I don't think we can really measure too much about time off from the game. My gut feeling tells me that Forgiven's going to wreck people for SK Gaming. I honestly think he's good. And this is where I didn't understand where Niklas Bendtner comes to the party, because Niklas Bendtner will wake up every day and always be a fucking donkey. He'll always be bad.
But it's the only concept I can think of in football where a player has that kind of mentality of himself and can see, like, outside of the box and how he actually is doing on the field.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know if you could find any other kind of explanation for that, but that would be my explanation. And then also the patch that Forgiven played on in the LCS, that was where all his favorite AD carries was the highest priority. The Caitlyn's and the Ezreal, I think it was. Corgi, maybe. I don't really remember. I just remember his Caitlyn was exceptional, and that was like the number one tier AD carry back then.
I mean, I got to say, in football, I've definitely seen lots of players that they kind of get billed as being washed up, and they and this is a common storyline in any sport. You get the player who gets washed. They're meant to be washed up. They're meant to not be they're not going to do anything. And they go on to, being incredible signings, like almost fortuitously, like nobody saw it coming. Not even the club that signed them could have realized how good they were going to be. In fact, if you want to think about an example from NFL, for all the respect that people had for Peyton Manning, before he moved, across to the Denver Broncos. This was a guy in his mid to late 30s. This was a guy who was recovering from some serious neck surgery. And I don't think anybody expected him to take the Denver Broncos to a Super Bowl final, let alone go on to be one of the, if not the, greatest quarterback of all time with the stats that he posted since he went there. It was incredible to see what he achieved. So I guess Forgiven has the potential to be that kind of player. I think he'll make a huge difference for SK Gaming. That's not to be disrespectful to Candy Panda, but I think Forgiven is a very different entity. He's somebody who wants to win. He's somebody who's incredibly aggressive, and will play lane. He'll read the opponent and play against his opponent. He won't play to a comfortable style. He's comfortable farming as he is being aggressive and winning trades. I think we'll be talking a lot about him next season. I definitely don't see him as a Niklas Bendtner kind of person.
No, that's just like, yeah. Okay, I think you get it now.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Well, look, dude, thanks a lot for calling in. I appreciate it, and it's good that someone's flying the flag for Forgiven, because I think a lot of people, again, in the League of Legends community, hilarious considering how toxic they are collectively. They focus in on his toxicity, and we never talk about his talent. In actual fact, this guy's going to be a god, I think, for SK.
Yeah, I just wanted to address how, like, they shouldn't like expect him to be a Super Saiyan right from the start, and how he actually could be a big disappointment.
Yeah, well, he could be. He could be. I don't think. Maybe I'll be eating some words. It does happen on occasion, but I literally think he's so hyped. I mean, this guy was playing for, a small unknown team, playing in Greek tournaments and stuff like that. This is his last big chance. If he fucks up at SK, he probably won't get another shot at the big time. And SK Gaming is still the big time. Even though maybe results don't show it. So I think he's going to grab that opportunity with both hands. And I think he'll be, far from Niklas Bendtner. But anyway, thanks a lot for calling in, brother. We're going to move on to another caller, and all the best for the rest of your evening.
All right. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Anytime. Take care. So there you go. I like that call, actually, Sam, because I got to say how shit Niklas Bendtner is.
Yeah.
I'll never tire of that. That guy's a fucking disgrace.
I think it doesn't really hold, though. If you wanted to compare him, you have to say Forgiven's like Niklas Bendtner if he stopped playing, but then he practiced with, like, he was in training for 6 months, because he's playing solo queue.
I don't think the Niklas Bendtner comparison really works at all, but he's right in the sense that it's hard to think of footballers that go on hiatus for a long period of time, get a shot at a big team, and everyone's like, this motherfucker's washed up.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out. I mean, I suppose, and this doesn't really even hold water, but, maybe you compare him to Balotelli.
That's what I was thinking. That was the comparison I was thinking. But it'd be like if Balotelli practiced every day still, and then he went to a new club. You wouldn't be thinking, oh, this guy's going to be shit.
Yeah, people forget, man, Balotelli's scoring record at AC Milan was like a fucking goal every other game.
Yeah.
He was banging him in, like, on the surface of it, picking him up for 16 mil or whatever it was at Liverpool. That was, you can blame Rodgers for lots of things, for the state of Liverpool's current fucking, success or lack of. You could certainly pin the blame on Rodgers not buying defense, because they shipped something like 52, 54 goals last season. He's dropped Mignolet. They're now playing Brad Jones as the main keeper. The signing of Balotelli isn't really the problem. Yeah. The sale of Suarez and is definitely a problem. Although it's probably only a matter of time before he goes fucking full ghetto and bites someone again. And not buying a defense, their problems. But Balotelli, on the surface of it, it was a gamble, but I wouldn't say it was the biggest gamble ever. So yeah, maybe the Forgiven comparison and Balotelli, does pay off. And there's someone in the chat comparing Balotelli to XJ9, which I definitely don't think that's the case. Balotelli's lawyers are gonna fuck you up.
I don't think there's anyone that compares to XJ9. He's a whole nother syndrome.
No one outside of prison.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we'll move on to another call, but that was nice, short and sweet. And people have criticised me for not getting enough callers on, so maybe we'll rattle through them. Right, who's the next caller, Sam, and what the fuck are they rabbiting about?
Next, we have your favourite subreddit of League of Legends moderator, HansJens47, and he wants to talk about social media use in esports and how profiles feed the trolls.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm on board. I actually like the League of Legends Reddit moderators, even though I called them a disgrace earlier. No, I do. That's true. I have a very good rapport with most of them. Hi there, Hansjin. Can you hear me?
Hi there.
Hi. It's great to get a moderator on the call for a change. I don't think we've ever had one of you guys call in.
No, you haven't.
I know I've had some messages from some of you guys about some of the shows we've done when we've talked about Reddit. So you want to talk about social media and how social media profiles actually feed trolls?
Yes.
Lay it on me, brother, I'm all ears.
So basically, today there's of course the Pragg incident, where people are essentially guessing that Pragg has given up on esports because she's been turned away by the trolls. At the start of the show, you made a couple comments about this regarding what happened in our League of Legends.
Yeah.
Essentially, you mentioned a comment where someone called her a whore.
Yep.
I'll give some context on that thread. It was one of the 3 threads we've removed regarding this story today. It had 0 points. It was quickly removed and had a total of 16 comments.
Yep. And we're back. So we know not to mention a certain banned jungler anymore. We need to start treating him like fucking Voldemort. He who cannot be mentioned. Anyway, look, Hansjin, sorry, you got cut off mid-point. And the point you were making, if I do recall correctly, was that that initial post that called her an attention-seeking whore got downvoted very quickly and removed very quickly by the moderators.
Yeah, so basically that's what happened. And I'm sure you understand the scale of our League of Legends is absolutely staggering. So when we get to something like this, and it's been something like 10 minutes where the comment has been live, the community has shown disdain for the comment and downvoted it heavily. I think it's disingenuous to say that the league community as a whole, or the parts of the league community, are saying that it's okay to call someone like Pragg a whore.
Okay, well, I mean, I would counteract that by saying if you were to look at I mean, there's been several threads about Pragg and several threads that, you know, she's made. I published her work on the website that I own, ThinkPiece. Whenever an Pragg article has made it onto the League of Legends subreddit, it's been downvoted in quite a disparate way. Certainly something I would say that speaks of block downvoting, vote brigading, which of course we know is against the rules if you dare do it.
Yeah,
to upvote something, but if you downvote something, apparently it's okay. And if you read the comments in any of those threads, it's why the fuck do I care what Pragg thinks? Fuck Pragg. Pragg's a stupid bitch. Oh my god, this is Thorin's troll account. You know, I could go on. So, to the idea that she gets or has had a fair shake from the League of Legends community is ridiculous, frankly, in my opinion.
So I love that you bring up technicalities on how Reddit works, because this is something you guys in the talk show industry get wrong absolutely all the time, and it's ridiculous to listen to.
So correct me then.
Yeah. So essentially, if you search our League of Legends for the name Pragg, you'll see that there has been a total of something like 3 articles submitted about her or from her in the last about 8 months or so. Her content basically isn't submitted to the subreddit, and there's a reason for this. And that is that Pragg had her account banned by the Reddit admins. That's Reddit employees, not volunteer moderators like myself.
Yeah.
So essentially, she broke some rules, and since the Reddit employees never talk about why they were banned, we can only speculate, and I don't think we should, because we really don't know why. So other people have to submit Pragg's content. And if you look at our League of Legends queue of new submissions that are consistently being made, a lot of submissions do really poorly. In fact, thousands of submissions do really poorly every single day. And Pragg submissions happen to be among those. Just as there's a lot of other submissions that
I'm just a little bit confused, though, Hansjin, because you said that she's banned, she doesn't submit her own work, but the account Taza_, that is Pragg and does submit her work.
Yes, that's an account that she's used, and I'm guessing she hasn't been breaking any rules because that account goes live. Her original Reddit account was banned for cheating, as a number of other content creators have had their accounts banned. Basically, my point here is that essentially, as moderators and as a community, we get a lot of flack for what happens on the edge of the community, outside of what's the mainstream. And this is something you yourself fall victim to all the time when you choose to spend your time addressing trolls rather than people who make substantial points in comments. And this comes back to the thread that I wanted to talk about here, which is how profiles in the esports community feed the trolls.
Right. Okay, so yeah, just before we do go on to that, just to address a couple of things, because this is an interesting topic of debate, and you know, I do understand that it is the staff that choose to ban people. The point that I've often made, and which has never really been addressed by Reddit moderators in particular, is, and I understand the difference between staff and a moderator. You know, I've been shadow banned 3 times. I've had all my shadow bans overturned because they've never been able to point to a rule why I've been shadow banned. In fact, they are misinterpreting their own rules, and whenever I challenge them about it, you know, I get unbanned because the ban was patently ridiculous in the first place. You know, and that's not even to have the whole side debate about self-promotion rules. I just gave up on even having that discussion, and now I just religiously adhere to the 9-to-1 ratio. I'll just submit in that, and even though recently they clarified and says it does include comments, which I'm sure some people who've been shadow banned would love to have, you know, would love to get reviews over. I just now religiously adhere to the 9-to-1 ratio. But the point that I wanted to talk about is what I don't understand with you guys that have a subreddit to moderate. I've been threatened with bans from you guys multiple times for calling people retards or stupid or whatever, which I think I'm well within my rights to do, especially given the amount of abuse that is thrown my way. Yet at no point can I think of a time when these serial abusers, these people who do harass people, these people who bookmark people's Reddit, accounts and feeds, and go in and downvote them and comment week after week after week after week. At no point can I think of you guys having took action and banned them from the subreddit, which you guys can do.
So that's patently untrue. So we ban multiple people every single day for following people around, for making insults, for personally attacking people. Okay. But there's one thing we have to recognize, and that's the fact that we are unable to see what goes on in private messages. Only Reddit employees can do that. So we rely on people to report content where they're being stalked, they're being harassed specifically over time. We're reliant on people going to the Reddit admins themselves and telling them about it so that the administrators who can see all the information can ban them. So we ban insulting people every single day. Many of them.
You ban them from the sub?
Yeah, we ban them from the subreddit. But if you as a person are being followed,
I see the same names like every time something of mine gets posted. Literally, the exact same accounts. I had a exchange recently with you guys about one guy who I won't name because I don't want any reprisals from my fans or anything like that. I think that would be an irresponsible use of my position. But I've seen. This guy, he comments in the threads. He's abusive towards me. He accuses me of anything really, from out and out lies to some very, unpalatable stuff. And he says and posts in the threads when people challenge him about it, well, I'm just doing it to get a rise out of him because I think it's funny. And yet you've allowed this person to do this for probably it's about 3 months. I've complained about him half a dozen times. So why is that person not banned? This is what I don't get.
So we're in the process of doing a rules overhaul, right? Where we're updating the subreddit rules, and we made a large sticky post about this some time ago, and we're in the process of finalizing that. Where we're moving away from a standard where we only have rules against direct insults, we're moving to a standard where we're going to require that people comment with basic decency. So that's a change that we're currently in the works of unleashing on the subreddit. We want to deal with these people better.
I find that an interesting change because that's the standard you've held me and every other content creator to, but not every user.
No. That's not true.
That is true. I've
No,
got
no, no.
I-
So
private
that's
messages and you know, I could bring this up now. You know, I could literally show you exchanges I've had with the Reddit moderators where you guys are warning me not to call people retards, and I'm saying, yeah, but look, this guy's telling me that I don't deserve to live, and you guys are going, yeah, but just ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. So this goes
So
back to my original point here, where you as a profile in the esports industry need to ignore trolls. That's something you need to learn as a lesson. So as a moderator, we see all the content.
You could just ban them, and then I wouldn't need to learn anything. I mean, they're breaking the rules that
We ban these people all the time. We ban hundreds of people for this every single year. Every single month, we ban dozens of people for telling people to kill themselves. It's the easiest way to get a subreddit ban from our League of Legends. But as a member of the community, whenever you comment on something, you're saying that this is worth responding to. This is something that has to be answered because it has some level of credibility, rather than ignoring it, hitting the report button, and walking away. So by engaging with trolls, you're choosing to give these people the time of day. You're choosing to give them the attention that they crave, and this leads more people to continue trolling you. That's why you, as a person specifically, have this negative following that follows you around everywhere, because they know if I try to troll Richard Lewis, he's bound to respond to me.
Well, it depends on what grounds you troll me on. So here's the thing, right? If you were to look at my history, you will notice that none of the people I reply to are people who say things along the lines of, God, Richard Lewis is a fat bald prick, you know, all of which is true. It's never somebody saying, you know, I bet Richard Lewis has a small dick, or, you know, Richard Lewis can't write, you know, whatever it might be. I don't reply to those guys. You know, maybe I do have a small penis. I don't, ladies, incidentally, but you know, I'm joking. Like, who gives a fuck, right? What about and if you think I can't write, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it. That's the right to fucking, you know, freedom of speech. I fully support it. You guys can say I suck as a writer. You can point out that I'm overweight. You can point out that my hairline's receding. I'm totally fine with that. But what happens more often than not is a lot of these people, they stay out and out fallacies. So it can be things like, Richard Lewis has no qualifications as a journalist, and therefore we shouldn't listen to him as a journalist. Well, yeah, I'm going to reply to that because that isn't true. And what you need to understand is content creators and people in positions of prominence, they're in a lose-lose situation. Because on a subreddit that big, if somebody states something that is a falsehood, that is a fallacy, that isn't true, if they state it enough times, the, you know, herd-like mentality, you know, it goes unchallenged because no one's going to white knight you on Reddit, not with a downvote system in place where any you know, contradictory opinions are effectively punished to create a climate of intellectual dishonesty. So what we do is we need to challenge the lie. And if we do that, because how dare we challenge when we're meant to ignore it, like what you're telling me to do, we then become the bad guy. If we ignore it, the lie takes hold. And next thing I know, it's a guy who's actually a fan of my work saying, yeah, but I heard he has no journalistic qualifications, which again, isn't true. So I'm in a lose-lose situation. And, you know, moderators have talked a great game about wanting to have a relationship with content creators, which I think they should. Even Reddit staff, even the Reddit model itself are starting to realize that without people who create original content, Reddit as a model is kind of getting towards the fucked side of things. So you moderators have wanted to have that relationship. Well, the best thing you could do would be, again, to sort of, you know, root out these people that drive content creators and drive people who try and create something for the betterment of the industry and the betterment of the game and the betterment of the community. They drive them away, and, you know, there's no pushback on those people. That would be, for me, a way.
But there is pushback on those people. There's massive pushback on this horde of people that engage in negative behaviors consistently, right? So whenever you choose to respond to a troll, you're choosing not to respond to a fan instead. Where you could respond to a fan and say, in my 10 years as a journalist, I've found, or esports journalist, I found this and this and this, rather than directly responding to someone who's saying, Richard Lewis has no idea what he's talking about, right? You can choose to engage with the constructive users while the comment thread is... Well, you shouldn't respond to both. You can respond to anyone you like, but you're lending them legitimacy by giving them a response. You're saying this is something that's credible enough. It isn't completely ridiculous, so I have to answer to this, right? Whenever you respond to a comment on Reddit, you're expanding the conversation. You're making it easier to happen to, when you're scrolling down a page, to happen to see this comment. When you're the submitter of an article on Reddit, you get a special flair that shows your username more clearly. So all of your comments will stand out more, especially when those comments then respond to something. Those responses gain more attention and they gain more votes, as it's really easy to document, right? So you're choosing to give these people your time of day rather than saying, as an aside to someone else, I'm a journalist, I've done this for 10 years, or when you plug all of your social media content links in a comment, you can give all the information there that states who you are, rather than having to give a troll.
I understand. I understand the point you're making, but it still doesn't come down to the fundamental truth that, first of all, not all trolls are equal. As I said, there are some accusations I think you absolutely have to challenge. And I've said this many times. I don't think that we should allow falsehoods about people to foster and to take hold. I think you've got an absolute right to defend yourself on the basis of, if someone is saying something about you that isn't true, I think that is worth responding to. Anything that's childish and pathetic, I don't get involved in. Frankly, if people want to talk about my appearance.
So that's really funny to hear. The number of people you respond to on Reddit all the time who say things like, "You're being tabloid," or "You're having some
what tabloid
title."
Means.
You shouldn't.
Why?
That's not a good social media strategy.
Why?
That's obvious to anyone with a decent modicum of sense.
If I didn't know better, I'd kind of get the impression here at this juncture that realistically you've kind of leveraged the airtime on this show, not to talk about a problem with trolls, but to actually lecture me as an individual, which I find incredible. You've just talked about how you're overloaded and you don't have enough time to bring the subreddit in check. And yet here you are, effectively mocking me for engaging you in a meaningful discussion.
So let's get back to the main point then, if that's what you're on, right?
Well, let's just before we do that though. Again, you're saying I shouldn't challenge people for incorrectly using these words and terms in an industry. These words and terms that are specific to my job and that I understand and have trained in all my life. So I think it actually helps the industry. I get a warm, fuzzy feeling when I see somebody misuse a term like yellow journalism, and somebody in a subreddit, quotes verbatim an explanation of why this piece isn't yellow journalism, or explains why an opinion piece is allowed. And we're dealing with a particularly young, young community here. In this particular subsection of the industry, a lot of them don't read newspapers. A lot of them don't know what an op-ed is or an opinion piece. And when you write one, they say, "Oh my God, this is biased news." They don't understand it. I'm proud of my contribution towards making people understand the right to editorial, the right to opinion pieces. And that isn't, unfortunately, just in the writing of them. It's standing there and fighting against the people who say you've got no right to write this in the first place, that this is a disgusting piece of work, and how dare you express an opinion in a written form. And arguing with them is just as important as writing the piece in the first place, and that's coming from 10 years of experience.
So I don't really think that's fair, essentially, right? So I think that whenever you respond to someone, and this happens quite regularly, and you say, "This is tabloid," or "Why should we care about this opinion?" You're underselling yourself by responding to these people. Because as someone who's actually a journalist writing about esports, you're in a very special position. You're a resource that we as a community need to take very seriously, right? There aren't enough journalists.
I wouldn't want to say one way or the other, actually, because I think when you overstate your own importance, you actually find people who will just be petty and argue with you purely and simply for the sake of that. Indeed, when I first had my experiences with Reddit moderators for the League of Legends subreddit, and again, no other subreddit that I've ever been a part of or submitted any content to, but just the League of Legends one. My first experience were entirely negative. In fact, when you deleted a piece of writing, not you personally, but you as a collective entity, when you guys deleted a piece that I wrote about Absolute Legends and how they'd scammed their team from Singapore, you guys deleted that piece. You told me that it was witch hunting, and that because I'd used anonymous sources, they were no sources at all, and that we shouldn't allow that piece of writing to be on the subreddit. So then when I entered into a dialogue with the moderators, there was again a moderator who I won't name, who was telling me, well, I'm doing my NCTJ accreditation, which is the National Council for the Training of Journalists in the UK, something I did many years ago and already had. And he was telling me about how my work wouldn't conform to his standards of coursework, and was actually being very derisory and rude about my work. And that was why it was staying deleted. In essence, what he'd done was apply an editorial standard to a piece of work that I don't think you guys should be doing that. I think you should look at whether it adheres to the rules. It certainly did. It wasn't a witch hunt. It didn't call for action or throw anyone under the bus in a ridiculous fashion. It wasn't like I say, let's all boycott Absolute Legends, let's all hunt this guy down and make him pay the money. It was just, this is what happened to this team in Singapore. Then after you guys absolutely refused to allow the piece to be reinstated, about 6 days later, one of the players who was involved came forward. There was a guy called Spellsy, and he came forward and he posted the story and said Richard Lewis is legit and this article is completely accurate, and his reposting of the article along with his own tale, that was allowed to stand and suddenly wasn't witch hunting. And it's these inconsistencies that create a rod for your back. But the idea that you guys look at journalists and content creators as being important or worthwhile, I think a lot of us don't actually get that impression because we've had negative experiences in the past.
So I definitely think that we make mistakes. We make too many mistakes as a moderation team, and that's part of the price that we unfortunately pay for running a subreddit as volunteers, right? So essentially, we have not just kids or students or teenagers, young adults who are moderators. We also have more professional people, but we have to use their time in the best ways possible. Just as you as a journalist need to spend your time on the most important things because you obviously prioritize, right? So we make too many mistakes, and there's no excuse for that. We've made lots of mistakes in the past. But one thing we have done right for a very long time is that we've considered comments on the subreddit as part of what should go into this 9-to-1 standard that's a site-wide rule on Reddit. Now, about 10-12 days ago, the Reddit administrators, the employees, clarified their rule now to include comments as well. This is something we've been doing for years, and or at least more than a year. And this is a standard that we've said that this is what content creators need. This is a standard that we've defended and brought up to the Reddit employees multiple times, because as content creators, you guys need to be viewed as a resource, not as someone who's potentially a spammer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's just one example of how we as a moderation team really do try to view people as a resource when they create content that's important, because on Reddit we don't create much, rather than we use other people's work, so they need to get that credit.
Yeah, I agree. Just a quick question, because I know we're going to fold back into the initial point of the conversation, which was about effectively kind of creating the trolls, creating the monsters that we complain about, and I'm sure you've got many more points you want to make about that. But and this is a hypothetical question, Hansjon. Is it fair that Reddit moderators can effectively pass off, and this is in any sub, not just yours, but effectively pass off poor decision-making processes, ineptitude, biases, and other such things, simply gloss over them on the basis that they're volunteers?
I don't think we gloss over it. It's an explanation, not an excuse, right? So if you had a professional editor, something would look very different, right? Rather than what we try as essentially a moderator is an editor of sorts, because they choose what content goes through and what content does not. But there's some things that we're very particular about in our League of Legends specifically, and one of those things is that mods can't have any ties whatsoever to esports organizations. And this is something we remove moderators for. For instance, when they've been hired by Riot Games, they're no longer moderating. They no longer get the inside information. They no longer edit the community. And the result of that is that we have no financial interests whatsoever. We can think only of the community. Unlike talk show hosts or players or journalists or publishers or anyone else involved in esports, we only need to care about the community in a very naive way, right? It comes off as very naive. But the result of that is that we can think about users because we're just normal users. So that's part of what you get when mods are indeed just volunteers. Of course, we want to attract the best talent that we possibly can, and in a week or so, we're going to start looking for more moderators. And we want the most qualified people, but there's a limited amount of people who are willing to spend hours every single week essentially going through all of the bad comment that you don't really want to see on a subreddit.
But this is what I mean. Again, so there's a couple of points that come out of that. The first thing is, I don't necessarily think this is... Well, no, actually, no, let me start with some positive words for the subreddit, because obviously, and I talk to a lot of you guys, a lot of you moderators, and I definitely don't want this call, when the invariably gets played back to them, I don't want them to think that it's entirely, negative on my part, that I have any sore feelings, because I absolutely don't. I mean, I think you guys fulfill an incredibly important function. I know firsthand you guys regularly, like you say, you remain free from influence from Riot. A lot of people accuse you of the contrary. I've seen evidence that proves exactly that, and I think it's great that the subreddit is a Riot-free zone, because I know firsthand they wouldn't wield that power responsibly at all. They can't be trusted with it, and it's great that there is a line in the sand where people who might be marginalized by Riot, content creators like Thorin, like myself, or anybody with an opinion Riot don't like, is allowed to express that opinion on the subreddit, which is the community hub. And it's amazing that you guys, under, I'm sure, what is considerable pressure, don't relent, don't bow. And that's another reason why the subreddit is such an important focus, perhaps more so than any other game, because Riot are looking to exert that influence, and in other games like Dota 2 or whatever, they're not. Valve don't care. It's not a problem. They don't want to control everything. But that said, I think the issue you've got with some of the moderators, it's not an issue of qualification. It's actually an issue of the people that come in seem to have a very strange attitude about what they're effectively there to do. Now, I mean, already on this course of the call, if I didn't know better, I would say there was almost an undertone of hostility towards me, that you were probably one of the people recently who was saying that I should be banned for my, responses to some of the users. And I know that was discussed and talked about. Me being banned from the subreddit, and perhaps that's a fair comment. Maybe I shouldn't be calling people stupid and retards, but certainly the people that are abusing me in the first instance need to be held to the same rules. So I'm happy to go down with everyone, that's fine. If they're going to get banned too, by all means ban me. But if not, then it seems crazy to put me on a pedestal and hold me up to a higher standard. That seems like a double standard by definition. But also as well, when you guys do apply an editorial standard to a piece of work, I've had pieces of work deleted because you didn't like the title of the article.
So one thing to mention here very specifically, because titles serve a very different function on Reddit than they do very many other places, and that's based on how people vote, right? So we're very reliant on titles to clearly describe what the content of a submission really is, so that people vote based on the actual content rather than some assumption on what this should be. We're also very reliant on people to have on the titles themselves to be rather balanced, so that they don't say, click this link to find out this amazing secret truth about whatever, very exaggerated. the content needs to clearly come from the title so that someone can look at a title and go, is this something I want to click because I'm interested, or is this something I don't want to click because I'm not interested? And a lot of people vote based on titles alone. They won't actually go to the content itself, or they'll go directly into the comments without reading an article based purely on the title. So titles on the subreddit have a very specific position, which means that we do need to exert more editorial control there than probably what most journalists would like.
That's fine, but the issue is, if the title of my article on the publication that's agreed to publish it is one thing, and then you copy that exactly, and you create a thread on the League of Legends subreddit with that title, and then you guys go, "Oh, I don't like the sounds of that," and then you remove it on the basis that the title's unacceptable. Well, that's what the article is called. In fact, if you were to go to the politics subreddit, if you post any piece of news there and you don't copy it word for word, they delete it, because that opens itself to editorializing.
So this is very funny. I also moderate our politics, so I know everything about that subreddit. Basically, the title rule in our politics is very specific. We don't need to go into details, but you can also use quotes from the article as your submission title if you don't think the title itself is accurate. The same thing goes on Reddit. There's no reason why your article title on the site where you've published it needs to be the same as the Reddit title. That's a choice that you're making, right?
Yeah, but again, let's not forget when we went through the dark days of the lack of clarity about whether content creators could self-submit, what were the ratios. Everyone was getting banned by the admins, again, not by you guys. A lot of the time, you don't have a say on who submits it or what they call it, not unless you're being a naughty little slasher and you're asking people to do it for you, which, I of course, would never do such a thing. So that's a problem. What if they've chosen to post the article and they use a name and a title that you don't like, and I'm going about my business thinking, well, that's a great article, I'm sure it's going to make it to the front page, and I come home and I'm like, someone's messaged me on Skype to say, oh, your article got deleted off Reddit again, and I'm like, oh, well, that was a bit of a waste of a day because it's generated, no traffic from the community that would be therefore most interested in the piece. Effectively, the people I'm writing for is the League of Legends subreddit, not even the wider League of Legends community, literally just the subreddit itself. So, again, we don't always have control over how our work is represented. In fact, I know often there is nothing I would like better than to be able to say to a moderator, holy shit, this guy has put why Richard Lewis thinks he is the son of God, for an article that maybe, I make a joke about it like halfway through, something along the lines of, I'm not the son of God. And they've focused on that and they make it the title of the article, and it's got 0%, massive downvotes, and everyone's calling me a narcissist. I'd much rather that didn't happen. But again, I have no say about that. It's an organic thing that occurs. And this is why I do worry about moderators feeling comfortable editorializing. And, it's interesting you bring up your involvement with the politics subreddit. I know there's a lot of Reddit power users that operate in multiple big subreddits. The politics subreddit, with all due respect, I don't know if you were there, but that they operated some of the most disgusting censorship policies I've ever seen on a forum that proclaims to be open for public use and about expressing opinions. Some of the websites that they banned for being blog spam was absolutely shameful. And again, anybody who thinks that was okay really needs to take a long, hard look at themselves, because they're bordering on a fascist ideology and certainly shouldn't be in charge of anything that's meant to be public domain. So I definitely think mods shouldn't have any editorial input, frankly. I think that's the best way to do it. I think that's the safest way to do it. My work has to be editorialized by me. It goes through an editor before it's deemed fit for publication. It shouldn't have an extra filter, an extra layer of editorial input from, volunteers.
So this goes back to this whole sense where, naive as it sounds, as moderators, we only need to be responsible towards the community. As a content creator, you have a financial interest that something follows your editorial, right? As moderators, we don't have that financial interest, right? We can say someone else can submit this content how they feel it should be represented towards the community. So we don't need to look at the editorial and say we should let everyone and their cousin have their own financial interests being represented as well as possible on our League of Legends if that happens at the expense of the community. And that's something as mods, that's a massive responsibility to do on behalf of a community. It's a very difficult responsibility, which means that we work very strongly with rules that we try to make as objective as possible to require everybody be treated the same way. So as an editorial, we make very clear the standards that we try to apply as best we can. Now, as I said earlier, we make mistakes, but at least we're very open about the editorial policies that we're trying to enforce, and that's not something that other publications necessarily do if they have a manifest at all about what their editorial process is about. That's completely up to them, and that can happen in the background.
Yeah, and just to make a point, look, I know you know this, and you're certainly right to a degree. I do have a tangential financial interest ultimately, and I've said it multiple times. I think there is a misconception that my work is monetized per click or something like that. Actually, it isn't. In fact, my contract with the Daily Dot, I could walk away from writing about esports. It's in its entirety, the same money would go into my bank account. I'd be more than welcome to go write about politics or anything else. My whatever my whim took me. So if a piece is read by 10 people or a piece is read by 10,000 or 100,000, it ultimately remains the same in terms of financial inducement. Obviously, the point is over a long enough time, if no one reads my work, then I may be deemed surplus to requirements by my the publication that employs me. But ultimately, a lot of the time, the work that I put out there, I and this might sound aggrandizing, but I do genuinely believe it's in the public interest. That's the thing that spurs me on to kind of get a front page Reddit post. That's the thing that I think, okay, well, now it's been seen by the community, and that's my work done. It's not necessarily about the financial side of things. Which just on a again, this is a hypothetical question just for my own curiosity. When there's like skin sales or whatever from Riot, I often see posts for that, like when there's those seasonal sales. Is that not representing Riot's financial interests?
So Riot never submits content like that to the subreddit themselves. If they were to submit that content, that could definitely be a large problem, and that's an issue that we definitely have to discuss internally. What should we do about this, right? But users submit content about updates, about features, about sales, about releases all the time because that's what they're interested in, right?
Yeah.
So that's one large difference. Now I've been aware for a long time that you do in fact write based on salary and not based on page views. But for a lot of other people, content creators in the scene, that's not the same way. Specifically YouTubers or streamers.
It's a disgraceful shame for a lot of very good journalists in the industry that they have to rely on page clicks. It really is a shame for. I'm thinking, publications like Gold Pretend, Paravine, people like this. Yeah,
but earlier when we were talking, you said that if one of your posts got removed, that's essentially a day that's been wasted for you because you care about esports, you care about the public getting to know what's going on, which means that even if there's not a financial interest, there's definitely a genuine interest because you care about the scene. So it then comes down to what role should esports journalists have in how information is released to the community in a space that you earlier said was very important because anyone can submit something and the editorial content, the editorial choices, they lie with a third party. So we have rules against reposting content, which is what you referred to earlier when you said someone else could submit your work with a poor title and therefore the work wouldn't gain exposure. There are a lot of problems with that sort of rule, but the alternatives of having people submit, I don't know, their own YouTube video or an article they've written or a skin idea they've written over and over again because their content doesn't get the initial votes that they want, so that they have a chance of reaching the front page, would create even bigger problems. So the platform of Reddit has very many serious limitations. And we just have to deal with those the best we can. And sometimes that creates these large issues that we're all aware of, but we don't really have any good solutions to. And by all means, if anyone listening to this has good solutions, better solutions to anything that goes on in the subreddit, shoot us a message. We want to know about that as much as possible, because we want to do the best job that we can possibly do. But now we've been talking about a lot of different things for
sorry, I want to bring you back actually, just for the main point you called about, which was just about the trolls. Now, and look, we've been going at it for quite a while. It's been a fascinating debate. I definitely want to thank you for coming on and doing it. So just to the final point to wrap it up, I still cannot necessarily agree with what you're saying about it's in the interest. Now, I'm loath to use this term about me, but like, let's just say we're not talking about me. That it's in the interests of the celebrity. Like, I don't think of myself in those terms, but let's just use that word as a catch-all term for the most known person in an exchange between two people. So I don't necessarily agree that the celebrity has to ignore the troll to be acting in complete propriety. And I'll give you an example. Now, I don't know if you follow soccer. I'm guessing from the accent, maybe.
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do? Do you know Stan Collymore?
Yes, I've heard the name.
He was an ex-Liverpool and ex-Nottingham Forest striker. When he was at Nottingham Forest, actually, he was considered like he was going to be the British Ronaldo. He was a great all-round footballer. Didn't quite live up to that. He had a lot of personal problems, sex addiction, drinking. He was involved in a tabloid scandal for hitting his girlfriend Ulrika Johnson over here, as well as he got caught dogging. On Cannock Chase in Birmingham, which isn't far from where I live. Anyway, now how he deals with trolls is he gets so much racist abuse. He gets, obviously the wife beating thing gets brought up. He gets called all sorts of horrible racial epithets. I'll let you use your imagination. And what he does is he just retweets them and he replies to them and he says, I'm going to forward this to the police because what you're doing is a criminal offense and and he draws attention to the abuse he gets. He recently in the UK went on a very public crusade, went on several TV shows to try and get Twitter to change its rules about how it handles people that use it as a conduit for abusing celebrities. He's been instrumental actually in getting us into a debate about whether or not we prosecute over things like rape threats, murder threats, that kind of thing. Now, he doesn't ignore it. And do you know what? I think what he's doing is certainly a lot better than just hitting block and getting on with the day and allowing that person, that racist individual, to go about their day free from any reprisals. And this is how I think about it when I respond to people, is that, first of all, if you're responding and it's from a point of pure ignorance, maybe I don't always phrase it in the correct way, but ultimately the sentiment is in correcting the ignorance, is in, enlightening you to be better informed about what you're talking about. Now, we know, obviously, as adults, most people won't accept that, especially in a combative situation. The other point that is that if someone's spreading a lie about me, I respond to a slanderous comment effectively, and I correct it. And I think that's within my right. I think I'm well within my rights to do that. I would like you to position yourself where I am and be in a position where many people on the subreddit are talking about you specifically, not using an alias, using your, parents' given name, talking about you as a very real human being and saying things that were untrue about you en masse, repeatedly. And I would like to see how long it would take before you decided to correct them. I think what you're saying about just ignore the trolls and they go away, it's actually, there was a psychological study, I could probably link you to it after the call, that shows ignoring trolls isn't even the best strategy for dealing with people that are just being malicious and malevolent. So I've got all this qualitative and almost, I guess we can call psychological studies scientific to a degree. I've got this evidence that says your belief system is actually flawed.
So, as moderators, we get a bunch of abuse, right? We get death threats all the time, that sort of thing. So this is something that we also have a lot of experience with, even though we're anonymous people, essentially, right? And being anonymous, because we do this voluntarily for free, means that we consciously choose this is not something that we want to have affect our own personal lives, which is, I mean, in one sense, it's rather selfish, right? But it's something that we choose to do because we realize that the real life impacts of being in a large community like our League of Legends is affects people's lives very, very negatively in very serious ways. Now, social media websites, they don't want to touch that content, the hate speech, the other types of speech that in many countries is actually illegal. They don't want to touch that unless they absolutely have to because the court tells them to. Essentially, any participation is good participation as far as they're concerned, and they try to wash their hands of it as much as possible. So on Reddit, where we try the best we can to remove personal insults, attacks, hate speech, that sort of thing, we're going beyond what's strictly necessary because we believe that a climate of hate is bad for the community. It's not something we as a community should tolerate and accept. Now, the term trolling gets misused all the time, but the essential troll is someone who posts something disingenuously because they want attention, right? And the attention seeker, how do you stop the attention seeker from trying to seek attention over and over again? You ignore them. You don't gratify them by either responding positively or negatively to what they say. And I don't really think that's something that you can say that correcting everyone or someone who's wrong on the internet is always worthwhile, because some people essentially try to spread falsehoods and try to just get a rouse out of you no matter what. And those people have to be ignored. As you say, people who have legitimate concerns, who are trying their best to post something that they feel is relevant for the discussion, obviously respond to them. But if you give long responses, if you give heated responses, the third party that looks onto those conversations as the vote counts indicate, think negatively. If they perceive you as, I don't know, retaliating or being less than cordial in return, right? So essentially, if you feel the need to respond to a comment, leave one short argument that you think is the best argument, the best single argument for ultimately having said everything you feel is necessary on that topic. This isn't worth your time because X. And essentially, as a subreddit community, this comes back to tie it all back to where we started out. Profiles, or call them celebrities, prominent members of the community in esports, in League of Legends, they have to choose very carefully where they prioritize to spend their time. And whenever they spend their time correcting falsehoods, correcting mistakes, rather than answering follow-up questions or questions for elaboration, that sort of thing, is essentially prioritizing negative behaviors. And as a community, that's something that reinforces negative behaviors. What do I do if I want, I don't know, this pro player who's on Reddit to respond? What do I do to get him to respond to me, to notice me as an individual? Right? So,
yeah, no, I
I mean, it's definitely more complicated than ignore everyone. But I think a lot of people respond to too many negative behaviors. A lot of streamers spend time on Twitch chat, what gets said in Twitch chat, where obviously that's a lot of that's something that you should just disregard completely and not read, right? And others just laugh at it and have fun and try to move on. And that's not how we ideally would like the community to be, but it's something that's necessary because there are a lot of young people who are trying to find their way in what's acceptable in public discourse, but there's also a lot, since the community is so large, there's also a lot of people who aren't the type of people that you necessarily want to talk to in real life. You'd walk away because these people are saying things that it's not nice, and you remove yourself from those situations.
Yeah, but the point I'm going to make, and this will be the last point before we move on to another caller, we'll actually take a short break after you. But that thinking is entrenched in something called operant conditioning, and what this means is that that punishment and reward can influence a subject's behavior, and we apply it very commonly to what you're talking about. Childhood strategies for rearing and parenting children. What we do is, like you say, when a baby's crying and wants attention, you have to make a judgment call there and then about whether or not you give the baby, the attention, because if you do, then it's going to persistently cry, it's going to persistently get attention. It's this type of negative reinforcement you're talking about. Now, that works in a parental sense, this operant conditioning, because we completely control a child's environment. The reason it doesn't work for a gang of internet trolls is that we don't control their environments at all. We actually have, there's nothing in the equation for them. There's nothing but the reward of potentially getting you riled, of potentially getting you angry, if that is indeed what they want. It's actually, that's all that they stand to gain. There is no loss in it, because everyone says just ignore them, they'll go away, but they don't go away, because why would they? There's no penalties, there's no punishments. And this is my point about where you guys come in. You are effectively, for good or ill, the parent figures in this operant conditioning model that you're talking about. And if you don't actually take action against the people for doing these negative things, and I know you're saying that you do, and I could provide many examples of people and be like, these guys should be banned. In fact, the people, every time I've complained about these people, I've been chastised for asking for special treatment, which I'm not. I'm just asking for these people to be treated like everyone else on the subreddit, especially me. But if you guys don't act like that parent figure and wield that responsibility equally across the board, then they won't stop. And this has been proven multiple times on social media. We need to move away from the idea that the child strategy of operant conditioning is going to work on internet trolls. Anyway, Hanstjens, I'm definitely going to go. I think it was great that you called in. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit dubious about some of the motives, but it definitely takes a lot of balls to come on and debate the topic. I think you've represented your points very well. And also, let me say at this juncture, that as a volunteer, as somebody who does preside over the subreddit and puts in, countless hours of their own time into trying to make that subreddit a better place, for good or ill, I want to thank you for it. And that's not sarcastic. Seriously, it's I've done volunteer work, and I know how unrewarding it can be at times, especially when people are attacking you seemingly from all angles. So I want to thank you for the time that you put in for the sub, and thank you for calling in tonight.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, brother. Take care. So there we go. That was my equivalent of Frost Nixon.
Well, during that call, there's a page on Reddit that got to rank 18 called "End the Call, You Won," Richard Lewis.
It's not about winning or losing.
Yeah, I know, but people were just going crazy on the Reddit, so I doubt it's going to be up there long, boys. Get ready.
But the thing that's annoying is that probably there's one entity that people despise more than me in League of Legends, League of Legends subreddit mods.
Yeah. So,
right, like, this is like, I don't know, this is like Pol Pot getting in a fist fight with Hitler in their eyes. It's like, go Pot, the freedom fighter that we need. It's completely ridiculous. And it took a lot of balls for that guy to call in. I'm glad he did. I think we had a meaningful discussion. I hope when people watch the VOD back, the last thing they do is kind of reduce it to like, lol, wrecked. It's like we had a serious debate about things. I disagree with his points fundamentally, and I think evidence bears me out, but that I could be wrong. It could be, couldn't I? It's happened once or twice.
You did try and take it a bit personal, but whatever. That's what people are pissed off about, I think.
Look, I understand. It's like
Richard is a big boy; he can look after himself.
Yeah, but when you're a volunteer on a subreddit and people are attacking your work, especially someone like myself who has a platform through which to do it, I understand it's frustrating, and I'm glad that they reached out and decided to talk about it. I certainly hope it doesn't discourage other Reddit moderators or Reddit staff from doing the same in future. Anyway, let's take a break.
All right.
let's have a break. 'Cause I need more beers. I got as much of a dry mouth as that fucking first caller. I need to get my cotton mouth fixed. So we're gonna take a quick 5-minute break. We're gonna grab a couple of brewskis. I recommend you do the same. We'll run for about another 45 minutes to an hour after this. I want to thank everyone for watching. Numbers have massively spiked. I wonder why that is. Where have you been all night? And we'll see you in about 4.
And
Peace.
before we go, we actually have a lack of callers for once. Usually we have like 50 extra. Now we have a lack. So if anyone wants to call in, send them all in during the break, and I'll line you all up.
What, like we've literally got no callers? Is that
Well,
what
we've got a few, but it's just the mods, and people get pissed off when I let the same people on the show. So now's your chance. If you want to talk about CS:GO, we got one StarCraft call lined up, which will be on after the break. If you want to talk about anything that's not League,
the token inclusion of StarCraft.
yeah,
like just to show that I love you guys.
You gotta
Hey,
give 'em a
it
bit of
doesn't
food.
matter. If we've got no callers, I've got stand-up material. So it's good. All right. Anyway, we'll be back in 4 minutes, guys. Peace.
wait, okay.
Hello, chaps and chapesses. We're back after a short break, as promised, to another edition of Trash Talk. And we've actually had an influx of callers to go with our influx of viewers, which is good. Sam, you said there was a weird question for me.
Someone asked, who is funnier on a night out? Who would be funnier? Dion Dublin or Stan Collymore?
Right, well, I've never had a night out with Stan Collymore. In fact, I've never had the pleasure of meeting him. He did link to one of my articles I wrote on a sports website because Stan Collymore brought up the point about how sports journalists are all like public schoolboy twats and there's not many from working class backgrounds, and I parroted those sentiments in an editorial, and he kindly retweeted it for me. But I did meet Dion Dublin at a gadget show, and he was there promoting he made this instrument called the doob. I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
It sounds like someone on Blue Peter.
Oh man, check it out.
And here we have Dion, 8 years old, and he made
I'm gonna link you to it. I don't know if you want to bring you can play this YouTube video if you want while I'm talking about it. I'll link it to you in the chat. Yeah, so Dion Dublin made this instrument called the doob, and I met him because we were working at the gadget show. Heaven Media, my old company I used to work for, were running this event, and it's basically a square drum that makes loads of different noises, and you bang it, and it like goes like wow wow, and that's it really. Effectively, the instrument he made is just a box
with some holes in it.
So, I'm being legit, man.
It does piss us off. He said you can also buy a stand for it.
The thing is, though, man, how many doobs had this guy been fucking smoking for him to think this was a good idea? But anyway, I went out and had fucking lunch with him. While he was telling me all about the doob. I think I was meant to write an article about it or something, but yeah, I didn't. So I'm gonna guess if you had to like take the choice, Stan Collymore, he's been caught dogging, notorious drinker, or a man who claims to have invented a new musical instrument that's just really a box.
Oh, his mate's in?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. So yeah, I'm probably gonna go with Stan Collymore on that one. Anyway, that's enough doobology. There you go. I feel like this show's it's really opened up to give people a cross section of my psyche. It starts with a badly dubbed ninja video, and now it ends with Dion Dublin banging a square box and claiming it's an instrument. I made that instrument when I was 4. Incidentally, I made the same one. In fact, there's an episode of Rainbow. Does anyone remember the kids' program Rainbow? There's an episode of Rainbow where they make their own instruments. Including the Plinky Plonker and a Twanger.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go, and that has Jeffrey saying the immortal line, "Get your twangers out." Anyway, that's neither here nor there, people. So, have we had any callers, Sam?
First, we'll bring on the StarCraft, the only StarCraft fan left in the world from Australia. His name is Bodhi, and he wants to talk about StarCraft 2 as a whole, latest tournaments, and balance, which I'm sure you have no fucking idea about, but we'll try it anyway.
Why did he have to be called Bodhi? Because it just makes me think about the guy from The Wire, and it just makes me sad. Bodhi. I know this guy. Bodhi, my boy. I know him.
How are you, Richie?
How you doing, dude? I haven't seen you retweeting my verbal abuse I throw at people for a while. You used to be reliable for that.
It'll happen, mate. Just give it time. I've just got to find some StarCraft related shit, mate. What's going on with you in the Reddit at the moment? You got Reddit admins on, and you're bloody going backwards and forwards. Are you been stirring up trouble again, Rich?
You know me. I'm a bit of a rabble rouser, aren't I? It's got to be said. Known to cause trouble. You had a fucking spot of bother out in Australia with that fucking hijacking.
Yeah, it's not really a terrorist attack, though. They're just billing it like that because they want to be like everyone else. It's literally just one dude went crazy with the gun, and then when the hostages tried to shoot him, to grab the gun from him, they got shot.
Was he on bail for like sexual assault?
Yeah, he was. There's like some big fuck ups there. But I'm so glad that we gave away all our meta data retention rights so we can prevent something like that happening. Thank God, eh?
I know, it's almost
Anyway.
as if the government was on top of stuff,
It's
Bodie.
almost like it did nothing at all. Anyway.
So yeah, well, look, man, let's not go political. I know better than to
Flick
drink
that
and
shit
talk politics with an Aussie. So let's talk some StarCraft, brother.
Righto. So I've got a couple of things to say. First thing is I want to call out the community and say, leave Rifkin the fuck alone. Have you seen any of that shit that's going on at the moment?
I did, mate. I caught the drama and I caught the enforced apology, and I got to say, I read that apology, and I can imagine Rifkin writing it with these like sad eyes, like when a dog gets back from the vets after it's been neutered and it's thinking, where did my bollocks go?
Well, he should be happy. He's finally made it. He's been mauled by the community that he helps. It's generally got to happen at some point.
Yeah,
unfortunately. What a load of shit though. Some fucking NA scrub no one's ever heard of, never got anywhere in a tournament far enough that anyone knows who they are, and then because of time constraints he didn't get to play a match. Well, I'm sure he was a title contender. It's just like, well, fuck, give him a show match, be done with it. There you go. But,
yeah, I think
instead it's like, I'm never watching this guy again. The bastard. How could he do that? You got to be kidding me.
I think the point is a lot of people criticized him for being really aggressive in what he wrote. But I think what people don't realize is, like, when you're in esports and you're just taking shit day after day after day after day, you will snap. You will fucking snap.
He didn't let some random NA scrub like hold up a tournament for like 3 hours and have 400 people complain about a delayed tournament, as well as the players. But he has also, like, didn't he do like 2 months straight where he casted games every fucking day?
Yep.
But you know what? Throw him to the wolves. There's plenty more people like that, isn't there?
So, I mean, come on, give me your overall thoughts. I mean, is there no part of you that thinks Rifkin handled it, badly, or?
Oh, sure, he fucked. Okay, he treated people like adults where he needed to treat people like children. That's basically my thoughts. People need to grow the fuck up and grow some skin.
Yeah.
Righto. So that was that on Rifkin, but I've got a couple of other things to talk about. One thing that I want to pick your brains on, actually.
Yeah, do it.
Maps. The reason why I'm picking your brains on maps as opposed to somebody that, really understands StarCraft.
Yeah, somebody who knows what the fuck he's talking about.
You have a big love of sport, correct?
Yeah, of course I do, yeah.
Now, I don't know some of the references over in England, but I know some of the ones over here.
Yeah.
And home ground advantage is a phenomenally massive thing that happens in sport all around the world. Like, for instance, if you're used to playing football or fucking rugby at sea level, and then you go to Johannesburg, you can't breathe.
Yep.
You just can't fucking breathe.
That's why Bolivia had such a successful football team for a long period of time. The altitude sickness that everyone got, they had to move the ground in the end. Yeah.
There's another thing where there's a stadium in New Zealand, and Australia and New Zealand have got a massive sporting rivalry for rugby,
obviously.
especially. The All Blacks are pretty fucking hard to beat. But there's a stadium over there that's collectively referred to in Australia as the House of Pain.
Yep.
In 25 years, we've never won there. Like we've won the championship, and we've won now into country little shit that we do called the Bledisloe Cup, but we have never ever won in the House of Pain because of that massive home ground advantage that they have, just in where it is and also the crowd and all that sort of shit. So what my idea was what would it be like if instead of having 3 main regions for StarCraft 2 all having the same exact map pool, but if each region had one individual unique map to them. So that if people, say on America that played primarily on the American server, went to an American event, they have more practice on this specific map than someone, say, from Korea or Europe. And so that if people wanted to get some experience playing that specific map, they would have to play on that server or, learn on the day.
Well, yeah, look, I think as a kind of tournament stipulation, I definitely think that's great, because a lot of people think that home advantage, kind of when it relates to esports, either pertains to travel, so you're not jet lagged, You are
Yeah.
literally the home country, and people travel in and they're tired, which of course is a factor in real sports as well. But also, I think there's a lot of teams are good at one particular map. Teams are good at one particular thing. So again, like, when you play Fnatic on whatever map they're particularly good at the moment. I mean, all of them if Flush is in the team, but that's it.
Or that overpass one or something.
Yeah.
Pretty good at that
Overpass,
one.
right? The advantage is they know it better than anyone else because they fucking know all the boosts, right? So. But there's ping as well. If you're playing online, you can insist on being on a server from your country and all of that stuff. So yeah, there's all of that gets thought about, but not actually specific maps. So I really like the idea. The only thing is though, if people knew that they were playing an inter-region tournament where they were going to face somebody on that map, wouldn't they just be able to hardcore the map on ladder or something like that to get practice for it?
Well, they could, but that's one of the other benefits of it. Is because people always go on about, say, the North American ladder, and rightfully so, that it's the worst one because people forget that C even exists. But if you had that map specifically only on, say, NA, and you had Korean players that wanted to play, or you had European players, especially the Europeans, you'd actually have them switch over to that ladder to grind for a bit, simply because people are lazy as fuck and they will never ever do custom games, or only a handful of people will do custom games and just do that way back to back grinding out. Most people just do on ladder. So that's where it should have some like cross pollination between the servers where you get some really good players from different regions. If they know they're going to this country, they can play on that specific map. And that should, I don't know, as a way to sort of boost some of the shittier regions.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to say, I'm definitely sensing we're against the Koreans a little bit with this sentimentality, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, they'd have their own unique one too.
Yeah,
chances are there's not going to be many people going to Korea. You're going to have State Scarlet, and that's it.
Yeah, well, you're going to get fucked anyway. What's the point? But here's what I'm thinking. Perhaps then tournaments could go one step further. This might be going a bit extreme here, Bodie, so bear with me. But could perhaps a tournament...
slow down, too extreme.
Yeah, could a tournament perhaps not then say, right, secretly to each of the players in the region, say, this is the home map. This one. And it's out there and, nobody knows about it. It's going to be this one, right? And we don't tell anybody, but the region knows, and then we just drop it on them when the regions get intermingled. We're like, this is the home map. This is the one that all the NAs are well practiced on, or this is the one that all the Euros are practiced on.
Well, just imagine rocking up to a Counter-Strike tournament and you don't know the map at all. I think there might be a bit of an outrage at that one.
Well, it happened. It happened at a major.
Don't know.
It happened. Well, ESL Cologne, effectively, a few weeks before a major, they added the new maps, which were Overpass and the remake of Cobblestone. They added them to the map pool, and it was only They only announced it a few weeks before the tournament, and a lot of players were up in arms about it, saying these maps shouldn't be in a competitive environment. And Valve were like, no, we kind of think we need these maps to be here, and indeed, many games were played on these maps, and iconic moments, no less. And the Cobblestone in particular, every time it was played, people were like saying, oh my God, no one knows what they're doing. It's so bad. But it actually contributed to some of the most memorable games at the tournament because we saw this appreciation of raw skill.
Yeah, that could be another way to look at it. I don't know though. I don't know if I'd go that far, because I think once you get to that far, you just end up with putting every single person ever offside, because so many people are robots. I think you've got to cater to the robots a little bit, but just throw in a little bit of flair for the people that are a bit more creative.
So I mean,
because the problem is that you can end up with watching the same game 50 fucking times.
Yeah, true.
Because like people have got it narrowed down so much. So if you just threw in that little bit of randomness or a little bit of advantage either way, that maybe you could get some better underdog stories and things like that. Whereas, say, imagine some NA player that no one's ever heard of, for instance, that guy that missed out in the tournament. Imagine if he was really, really, really fucking good on one specific map because it's only on the NA server, and then there was an American too, and then he did all right.
Well, then he wouldn't
But
have had to fuck Rifkin over. So
yeah, no, he wouldn't have to throw one of the most productive community members ever to the wolves. But you know.
So I got a question for you while you're here, because I like your idea. We're in agreement, so ultimately there's nothing to argue about. It's not going to be like the last call where it's me and the Reddit mods, butting heads about our standpoints for about an hour. So the Destiny post.
The Destiny post? Destiny's fucking always been right. 100% spot on when it comes to all the skins and all that sort of stuff. If Blizzard have no monetary incentive to back the game, then what are we going to do? Like you can see the massive change that happened with Counter-Strike Go. Like hell, even I remember laughing at Counter-Strike Go when it first came out. And I've never played any of the Counter-Strike games, and I was watching reviews, and hell, even Thorin was talking about it, saying that it's, unplayable, it's a mess, just walking around feels like a fucking chore, but I can watch it, and that's all right. But then they added in all that other stuff and fixed things and then put in skins and made fuckloads of money from that so that they could continually reinvest in the game. And now it's, like, what is it, a 2-year-old game, and it's the big dog at the moment.
Yeah.
It's actually looking like it could take on League of Legends, which hasn't happened since League got big.
No, that's absolutely right.
Dota 2's had the international. Outside that, fucking nothing. And StarCraft 2's been just slowly dying forever. So it's if you put in the time and the resources and things, you can see a positive return. But whether Blizzard's willing to do something like that because they're a big company and they set shit out 5 years in advance and then follow that to the T, regardless of whether the house is on fire or not. So I don't see it happening, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to... Yep.
Dude, I got to say, look, it was great to hear from you finally and put an incredibly Antipodean voice to the face.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rich.
No, it means a lot.
A bit of a thick one, my accent. I'm kind of in the sticks. So it's like you when you're not doing your presenter accent.
God, I know it's horrible. I started the show doing it.
That fucking video on where you're doing that land that nobody turned up to or whatever. The whole shit. I was like, can't fucking understand him.
Yeah,
I love some fucking geese.
Yeah.
there is one last thing that I want to end on. And I'm going to have a lot of people that disagree with me on this one. And this is about Terran versus Zerg Mech.
Yeah.
Right? Now, a lot of people are whinging constantly that whenever that happens, it's boring and it's a stale game where nothing happens. But I'm just going to blow their mind, all right?
Right.
What Terran versus Zerg Mech is that it's the only matchup with a Zerg is the guy that sets the pace for the game. Everything they do, from attack timings to compositions and things, the Terran follows. What that means is that when you get those long, boring, frustrating, hour-long games where someone gets 50 swarm hosts and then just sits behind static defense, that's because the Zerg chose to go down that path. And the perfect example of a well-played-out TVZ mech game that everybody universally said was fucking amazing was the 4GG versus Life game that happened on Catalina. So basically what I'm saying is that all these Zerg players and that are whinging that they get stuck in these hour-long games, they should learn how to fucking play the matchup for a start. And then maybe they'd have something to complain about. But all of them do it wrong. Like, when I play Terran vs Zerg Mech, if it gets to like 15 minutes in the game, I've got probably about an 85% win rate. And that's because they literally have no idea what they're fucking doing. And the only person I've ever seen it play was one guy play it properly, and that was one guy on ladder, and that was Life versus 4GG.
Yeah.
So the answer, Zergs that are listening, is not mass swarm hosts, because if you go mass swarm hosts, that means I can build as many Ravens as I want, because I've got no worry about any sort of counter-attacking or you hitting someplace else or something like that. All I need is enough tanks to defend, and then I just get Ravens. The answer is 12 swarm hosts to hold a 2-2 mech kill timing, then do a secondary army that's Roach, Hydra, Viper, and you have a lower drone count, and you have 2 armies that cruise around the map. And so you have one with the swarm hosts that lock down a certain position, which forced me to put a fuckload of tanks there, and then you have a Roach, Hydra, Viper army. with only about 50 drones, and you continually make trades against the Terran. Because as long as the Terran's building siege tanks, they can't build Ravens. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, I'm gonna play this back next time I'm hosting a StarCraft 2 event. I'm gonna memorize everything you've just said.
Oh, it's frustrating, man. The saddest part is that when you get, and it's so fucking rare when it happens, but when you get a Zerg that actually knows what they're doing, Terran vs Zerg mech's fucking awesome. Because it's not just two big deathball armies, it's shit going on everywhere. Like everyone loved the 4GG versus Life game, and that had, it had Mutas, it had Ultras, it had Roach Hydra, it had a couple of Swarm hosts, and then it had fucking everything from the Terran as well, Thor's tanks, Banshees, Vikings, a handful of Ravens and stuff like that. And it was literally just shit happening constantly all over the map for an hour straight. But that's how it's supposed to be played. The problem is that Zergs just go for this strategy that dictate that the Terran has to turtle to respond to them. And it just makes for boring shit games.
Nice. So that would explain why we saw so many. I mean, the last two tournaments I watched, dude, got to say the quality of games, it really felt like they haven't been great.
It can be pretty shit. It is understandable that they don't understand it as well as, say, Bio TVZ, because in Bio Terran vs Zerg, that happens 90% of the time, and how Zerg functions for all the other matchups is they're ultimately defensive and reactive. So the Terran tries to kill them, the Zerg tries to get as many drones as they can, just hold off the army until they get too big an economy to fail. But in Terran vs Zerg mech, it's completely opposite. It's all about the Zerg forcing the Terran to use his gas bank. And how you do that is continually making him build siege tanks and Thors as opposed to just sitting there. Because as soon as they sit behind spore crawlers and swarm hosts, I win that game every single time. And it just takes me an hour to do it.
All right, well, look, Bodhi,
Anyway.
You'll have to post this to the Reddit, the StarCraft Reddit, because no one else, everyone in the chat's fucking confused as to what you're talking about. It's all LOL fans now. This used to be a StarCraft show. This used to be a StarCraft show primarily, and now it's LOL have took over. So it's up to you. Otherwise, no one's gonna know, how to do those Zerg versus Terran matchups. It's up to you, dude. It's up to you, Bodes. Well, look, man, it was great to finally talk to you anyway, and thanks a lot for calling in. Wish you all the best out in Oz. Try and avoid those crazy terrorists, and I will speak to you when I speak to you, mate.
See you, bud.
Yeah, all the best. There we go. Sam, he's a long-standing fan of mine, and he's never called into a show or anything like that. And he's a great guy. He's Australian.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Fuck. I didn't even know.
I was pissed at myself when I had him in.
Yeah, fucking hell. He's that's why Aussies are good people, man. They really don't give a fuck about anything. Like, whatever you think, they'll just fucking say it. So, great one. Great call for Bodhi. I think we've got time for one more, Sam.
Alright, just to excuse my incompetence, the reason the Skype calls are showing up on Richard's screen isn't my fucking fault, alright? It's Skype. It's nothing I can do about it. Fuck you all.
Our caller's gonna get DDoS to fuck.
Well, join the fucking club, son.
True.
Right.
Okay.
Alright.
Hang on. V-Man's in the chat and he says +1 for not giving a fuck. Well, I gotta tell you something, V-Man, my friend. My favourite League of Legends streamer from back in the day. You broke my little heart very, very recently. I've always loved you. The bare chest, the beard. You remind me of, one of fucking Boromir's brothers. One of Faramir's Rangers. This extra from Lord of the Rings. And here you are on Reddit, and you did a little apology the other day. An apology. Because you go into Korea, and it's going to be awesome, and Last Shadow's going to coach you, and that's going to be awesome, and you're going to have a great time. But you did a little apology for being a prick. And the thing is, you're not a prick. You never were a prick. It's everyone else. Everyone else is a prick. Like, it really is. It's not even an exaggeration. You're right, they're wrong. Like, I'm right and they're wrong. Just don't apologize. It broke my heart, dude. It broke my heart. You are the fucking man, V-Man. Never change. Don't go soft on me. I need you. We need to stay together. So, I love you.
And that ends the Inside Ocelot's Mind segment.
No. If it was the Inside Ocelot's Mind, I'd be going, I will turn you into a better person just if you let me. And No, it's not because he's Ocelot's having a tough time, bro. Lay off him. Lay off him. So, okay, let's do one more caller, and hopefully we can not get any of our callers DDoS. And by the way, V-Man, have a fucking wicked time in career. You're fucking awesome. You're gonna do really well. You are good enough to be in a professional team. I hope it happens for you. Even if you just get a good run in fucking Challenger or something, so we get to see you compete with the big boys again. That'd be brilliant. Right. Pick a caller for me. Haven't we got one of our regulars?
Yes, we have Shiradoon who wants to talk about Dota and how pros are complaining there's too much tournaments. So I don't know if he's going to call them self-entitled bastards or agree.
Well, who knows? He's going to fucking blow my mind. Here he is. It's another regular. How you doing? Shiradoon.
I'll take a fucking DDoS, man. A DDoS? I mean, I'm getting some Reddit flame. I'm getting a DDoS. I've basically made it in esports.
This is it, mate. You're at the top of the tree. But you want to talk about Dota, so this could end terribly for me because I haven't got a fucking clue what I'm talking about.
It's all right. It's all pretty transferable knowledge, mate. You've been around the block. You'll be fine. I believe
that's
in you,
what that's what it says on the public toilet wall, anyway. So.
Richard Lewis has been around the block.
Yeah.
Right. So what's going on basically is I'm going to disagree with our last caller, Mr. Australian. I'm not going to say anything about his StarCraft. I'm sure he's all perfectly right there. I mean, the statement "this show used to be about StarCraft and now it's gone." I mean, that sums up esports, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like it. There you go. We've got it. No, you're right though. It is a metaphor. This absolutely did used to be a StarCraft show back in the day. You can check my YouTube channel. You'll note
I've seen your old VODs.
Yeah, well, they're all 70 views that they've got or something.
Anyway, so I'm sure he knows all about that in Zergs and the other ones, all the men, the humans with the things. Anyway, he said that Dota is basically up the international and fuck all else. And while he's right in the past, that's not true now. I mean, okay, he was so right in the past. When the first international came along, I don't know if you know this, but some of the Chinese teams refused to come to the tournament because they thought it was a scam. Like, they got a dodgy email from this guy called Valve saying, "Oh yes, you come to America, you play a tournament, you give me your bank details, and if you win, we'll put $1 million in your bank from a Nigerian prince's coffers." And they said, "You can get fucked, mate. We're not coming to your tournament. We're not going to get sold into sex slavery in America
again."
And so Na'Vi just cruised the tournament because only fucking one of the top Chinese teams even showed up.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's not far from the truth anyway. It's alarmingly close to it. You're right. I think a lot of people were dubious.
So I mean, I know for a fact DK literally thought this 100% have come out on record saying we thought this tournament was a scam. It didn't exist. We were going to get duped out of our money or maybe get a brutal bumming at the very worst. So during the second international, it was still the same. People were playing for pennies on. I remember the Defense was the tournament of the year hosted by Join Dota. I think that had a top prize of $10,000 after like a sort of like 2-month-long league with a final online, not even a LAN. And that was the biggest thing of the year, save it TI2. TI3, it was getting a bit better, but now the pros are moaning, boo-hoo, wah-wah, we've made it in esports. There's too many LANs. There's too many tournaments.
I did want to correct Bodie because it was a long time friend.
He was on a StarCraft show as well.
Yeah. And, he's a top guy. And but what actually, this is what everyone's been complaining about as I see, oversaturation. I was talking to Bruno at DreamHack, and he just said there's too many fucking tournaments now. It's like every weekend something's happening for Dota. Players feel stretched. They don't know which is the best direction to move into. And, then they've got to be thinking about the international in advance because obviously that's the fucking, that's the rainmaker. So, yeah, these guys are feeling like really fucking burnt out. I mean, after the international where the fucking bomb just gets dropped and all the teams and organizations have a big shake-up, everyone decides, am I going to retire with my millions? Am I going to make a new team? Do I want more millions? What's going on? You've got all this, like, incredibly, it takes months after the international for the scene to settle again. Well, now it's like, holy fucking shit, you haven't got time because there's other opportunities, there's other tournaments, it's going to be it's so densely packed at the moment, the Dota calendar. Like, even as a novice, I know that.
Right. I mean, the problem is the top teams are trying to go to every fucking LAN. This isn't 2010, mate. Wake the fuck up. I mean, do you think Roger Federer is running down to Swindon to play some shitter tournament for like £100? Just fucking pick your battles. One of the player's specific complaints, his name's Eternal Envy, he plays for Cloud9. He basically said, oh, we went to this one tournament in China, then we went all the way to Ukraine, and then we went all the way to NA. Just pick one or two of those 3 tournaments. You don't have to go to all 3 international lands in the same fucking month.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. But then again, right, that said, so I'll do my usual and play a little bit of devil's advocate. I mean, put it this way, I think any player that's even got to an international, the money that you get for just turning up probably eclipses many
not
players.
last year.
Yeah, not last year, but I think it eclipses a lot of career earnings.
Yeah.
You know, like that people in esports will make, you know, especially if you're not a top, you know, Korean in StarCraft or whatever. So no. So all I was going to say was, you know, just to play that bit of devil's advocatory, we all know esports is about get what you can while you can.
Absolutely.
And if an organization is willing to send you all around the fucking houses, and you know you've got a good chance of winning all of those tournaments and the money's on the table, it might be grueling, but you know, you probably do feel a bit pressured into going for it.
I mean, put up or shut up. You're digging your own grave here. Either you want to get as much money out of your limited career as you can, which I am all for. Fucking go for it. And just practically kill yourself for 2 years. And then when you're shit, you can rest.
Yeah, exactly.
That's esports. Not you can rest when you're dead. You can rest when you're shit.
Yeah.
Or, you know, sort of take it back a bit and realize that you're not going to get the maximum money out of your career, but you're going to enjoy your time as a player, which again, I am all for. Like, maybe, you know, you are living the dream. Why not enjoy the dream? But the problem is...
I totally agree with you, man. I actually do agree, even though I'm playing devil's advocate.
No, it's cool. There's one team which I can say maybe they made more throughout the year, speaking last season, made more throughout the year than they did the International, and that was Alliance, who just after Season 3, obviously they made more by winning TI3 than they did ever, but they were still the top team after TI3, and they were doing really well for a long time, and then they fell off shortly before the International and bombed out in the group stage. So maybe in the TI4 season, maybe they made more money during the year than they did at the International. But yeah, if you can make it out of the group stage, you're probably almost guaranteed to get more money at the International than you will at all the lands put together, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's another thing as well. You know, I wonder if we'll get any of those kind of stealth teams which are going to hold back. It's interesting, and I don't know enough about this, so I'll ask you. But say, for example, in League of Legends, there are players that are just like, you know what?
Oh my God, we're making comparisons between Dota and League of Legends. You are going to get.
Yeah, I'm on thin ice. I'm on thin ice.
Take your eye off the Twitch chat, and we'll just carry on.
Right, okay.
Just keep going. So, like,
the thing is, what I usually do when I compare Dota in League is I put some soothing porn on, but unfortunately in the UK, all of my favourite sites have been banned for some reason because I've got a fisting fetish. But anyway, so we'll try and ignore the Twitch chat just for a second. But
okay,
League of Legends,
go ahead,
players, right? What happens with League of Legends is they're in a position where they can make so much money just by being a personality, just by streaming because of the sheer volume and weight of numbers, that actually you can imagine a bunch of pros saying, you know what? Fuck playing in a team. Fuck the grind of LCS. The salary's not worth it. It's minimum wage anyway. I can earn way more as a streamer. Let's just fucking have my 30k viewers on Twitch. I'll stream as long as I can. I'll get all the sub revenue. You know, and if people are fucking saying that Nightblue's earning, you know, over $1 million a year through his streaming and sub revenue, you know, obviously a lot of these former pros could do very well. Then let's imagine League of Legends had something that was the equivalent of the International, you know, where you could just go into qualifiers for it.
You need to be invited into qualifiers.
Okay, so you need to be invited, but like
you need to be within like the top 20 teams of your region, which is perfectly doable for any team that is even worth turning up.
Yeah, so I know. So like 3 months before, these pros could say, do you know what? Let's make a team.
They did. Mouse Sports at TI4 formed their team 1 month before the international qualifiers. They said their team was going to practice throughout the whole year and try and make it into TI5. They did so well in that month that they got invited into the qualifiers. They won the qualifiers. They made it to the international. They nearly made it out of the group stage. They lost to LGD in the tiebreaker, who then went on to play something like top 4. So, I mean, they were pretty fucking good. And I don't know, I can't remember. Let me have a look. Let me Google, while you're making your next point, how much money Mouse Sports made for existing for a month.
I wasn't going to make a point, actually. One story I never wrote And I sat on it and sat on it and sat on it, and I just don't know. Maybe it was because it was Dota related. But basically, I was going to write a story about how the Mouse Sports organization effectively withheld payment from the managers, other players. They did all they could. They fucked over as many people as they could in the organization to fund that team.
40 grand.
That was so
Mouse Sports made 40
time.
grand existing for a month and playing no tournaments except the international, just a few online shit and the qualifiers.
And 20% of that, of course, will have gone to the organisation.
So, yeah. I mean,
I'm guessing minimum.
Yeah, so 10% for a split 32 grand between 5 people. It's about 5-6 grand each, right?
Yeah, I guess it's not bad for a month's work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. They weren't working particularly hard. They were just scrimming and playing a few online events. It's not like they had a real struggle. I think they cashed out pretty nice.
So do you think this was the point I was making with the whole League of Legends thing? It wasn't a direct comparison, but just saying, would players? Do you think there's a platform there for Dota players to, just fuck Ukraine, fucking China, in the same week, having to go from Ukraine to China, back up to Russia, then to Swindon, because your name dropped it earlier for some talk, having to go all around this ridiculous thing, this ridiculous itinerary. And they could just stream, and then, like you say, 1 month before the international invites come around, you know what, lads? Let's just fucking get a team together. We'll roll heads. We'll go to an international. We'll make 40 Gs. Who knows? Maybe more. Maybe we could be like, Goran Ivanisevic winning Wimbledon on a wild card and go all the way and win the big prize. So, do you think we could see something like that in Dota? Because I really don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Let me give you, you might not even have to make a team a month before the international. You can just be a sort of a casually pro team who just goes to the biggest LANs. If there's maybe like 4 or 5, LANs a year we can really call majors. If you got a top 8 placing at all of them, you might get seeded directly into the international. Fuck the qualifiers. If you did really well at those LANs, and if you did just passably well at those LANs alone would give you a seed into your regional qualifiers, where you just have to be a couple of good teams and a fairly decent pool of shit tier teams that are just there for a few buddies from fucking solo queue who are like, come on guys, let's go get trounced by EG and have a fun time.
So I don't know, dude. I mean, it sounds to me that Dota's got a real healthy scene then.
Dota or CSGO has the best scene in the world right now. One of the two.
Yeah,
maybe Dota.
More so than League.
In terms of because we've got multiple major LANs. We've got the international, which is on par with Worlds. We've got leagues. They're not LCS tier, but it's like they're the Dream League. I mean, it had that one season where it all went to shit, but apart from that, it's been pretty good. We've got the Star Ladder League, which is pretty damn nice, with a LAN at the end of it. That's easily the match of the NA and AEU playoffs. I think they're living the fucking dream and they don't realize it.
Yeah, I mean, because look, I think one of the worst things that ever happened to League of Legends, actually, was the withdrawal of these major tournaments from other organizations. Like, I understand Riot's thought process and why they did it, but let's be honest, how great was IEM, just recently?
I explained their cards too close to their chest.
Yeah, it can't just be about LCS, All-Stars, Worlds. For me, that might work. I understand in a traditional sports framework, people might say, oh, well, think about it like, traditional sport, you've got one league, but it's not entirely accurate. Like, okay, so in soccer, you have a football team. It finishes above a certain level, and depending on that, it goes into a European tournament.
Yeah.
And sometimes you actually had the potential to be competing on 2 fronts back when the Cup Winners' Cup was around. But now it's you go into the Champions League, or you go into the Europa League, as it's now called, not the UEFA Cup. And therefore you're playing in a whole different tournament. Some teams get invited into other just prestigious tournaments, and winning trophies will allow you to enter into one-offs, like I can't remember the fucking name of it now, but what's the one where the like Latin American winners play the winners of the Cup of Americas, I think it's called, play the European.
I'm a disgrace to my race, mate. I don't give a shit about football. I got nothing.
Fucking drink bleach. But anyway, I feel bad because I can't remember the fucking name off the top of my head. I'm sure someone in the chat will tell me. But anyway, so we actually have the Latin champions play the European champions, and isn't that great? And there's all these other little tournaments that teams can kind of get invited to if they're prestigious enough. And I don't see why we can't have that in League of Legends or indeed all esports. FIFA World Club Cup, thank you, Sophia. I fucking love you. That's why you're a mod. So it's this is how it should be, I think. I like it. I like having, I'm not talking about, every 2-bit fucking tournament that can scrape together some buttons for a prize fund, having official Riot status and LCS teams are allowed to compete in it. No. I'm talking about,
MLG,
like,
IEM,
MLG,
the shit that they were already going
DreamHack.
to before LCS.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, if LCS had been added to the existing league scene rather than replacing it, we'd have had a great esport. Not that we already don't, to be honest, but it could have been so much more.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I agree. I'm inclined to agree. I love the spot Dota's in because the international, as I said, it operates kind of like a Super Bowl at the end of almost like an irregular season.
The problem is they're just bringing an old mentality to a new scene, and so they're just not looking at it from the right angle. Like they're still at it from we have to play every single tournament that exists unless it's literally for pennies. We have to play exhibitions. We have to go to every single LAN that we can physically get. Like if a LAN's happening in China and in NA on the exact same day, we can't go to both of them. Otherwise, we're going to all the fucking LANs, boys.
Yeah. But again, I think it feeds into this idea that esports isn't sustainable. It's like you said. I think every player knows, like in their heart of hearts, like you say, one day they'll be shit. One day all of this will be over. The dream is dead. You've got 4 years. Milk everyone for as much money as you can in that time frame. And then maybe if you're lucky, if you're charismatic enough and have a personality, you get to milk it a little bit more by being a caster or
I think our first one might be coming up because Sing Sing was kicked for Cloud9. He formed Team Tinker. It's not been going well. And his
they're in a good
numbers,
game agency though, right?
Well, sort of. They're going for it. They're being picked up, but I think Sing Sing might leave the team and just become a full-time streamer because, I mean, Dota's missed a trick. They've not got on the streaming wagon. Sing Sing is really, really ahead of the curve in Dota in terms of just building that following that doesn't rely on him being a top player. Sing Sing can probably make more money becoming a streamer than, I mean, Tinker was already going to be like a tier 2 team as it was. And even then, it looks like it's failing to achieve that. I don't know if he's going to find a really competitive team for TO5. Why not just make the big bank?
Yeah. Well, I'm the same. Look, I mean,
I'm rooting for him. I want him to. I love him as a player. He had a really strong performance at TI4 individually, and in his team they made top 8. They were the second highest placing Western team, the second highest placing North American team. And I mean,
put it this way. I want to put it in perspective. So I just said this to the chat before the start of the show. I had my first check from Twitch, and I made £100.
Nice.
Now think about it. I stream primarily.
Does that do the beers for one session of trash talk?
Yeah, roundabout. And this session, I've still got my Brewdog sponsor ale. This is the 5 a.m. Red Ale, which is very nice. But anyway, so the right, £100, and I stream 2 shows a week, so a total of 4 hours.
Yeah. And
I run ads, like I think Sam does at the halftime, and obviously some people subscribe and shit.
Right, so £100 for what? How long has this £100 been generated in?
Oh well, that was from the first month of October. So again, you're talking 8 shows tops.
8 shows.
8 shows tops. So a total of 16 hours. Right now, when you think about it like that, it's bad, but it's not like I've been pushing it. Think about the viewers.
No, it's pretty easy work, and you're well above minimum wage. It's not bad. I'd take that gig.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, imagine what a fucking Dota streamer could make, especially if he was positioned front and center to be like the only.
Not only is he positioned front and center as a huge personality of the scene, the Dota scene is really undersaturated on streaming personalities. People have missed a trick, and nobody's really milking that shit. Like the league. The league scene's so much more savvy about exploiting the Twitch. Exploiting is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Really,
taking advantage.
Still a bit strong.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean,
just benefiting from, you know.
if when I was coming up in esports, this was an option, you know, like literally way back, I probably would never have bothered even with writing or anything. Like, you know, I see. No, but this is true. Like, Duncan is obviously a bit of an anomaly. Thorin's hugely productive. But, you know, I've seen him. He's been putting out a lot of these video editorials lately that seem to do very well. Imagine
it's much easier to get your tone across in a video editorial. Like, I mean, it's easier for Thorin to sort of give his flame with a bit of a cheeky smile and a light-handed manner. Whereas if he said this player has performed really badly just in an article, people attach their own weight to it, biased by their I hate Thorin.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I'd have loved it. So especially if I'd ever been a player, like I think right now, and especially with what's going to happen in 2015, where you know we're going to have this Twitch are going to go hard at it. A lot of talk that maybe Google are going to enter the scene and have another go at esports streaming. Azubu apparently are getting another round of funding. Could potentially be moving to open platform in the new year. Hitbox, obviously, they're going away. We're going to have some, as of yet, unannounced streaming platforms. People are going to be bidding for broadcasting rights. People are going to be wanting to buy premium talent. Esports agencies that have talent on their roster are getting bought by big companies because everybody wants to get the talent, to get the traffic, to get the money. You know, it's like, it's a crazy time. And actually, in all of that, you could argue there's more value in being a personality than there is in actually being fucking good at the game.
More monetary value at the very least. Value is too subjective to really discuss on this show. But yeah, more money.
But that's why anyone gets out of bed and does esports, really. Like, okay, passion,
I don't know.
Passion.
Some players really live it. Every single player has to look in that camera and say, "Oh, it's not about the money for me. I just, you know, I've got a passion. I want to win. I'm having fun with my friends. My team are good guys." Most of them, it's bullshit. One or two, that's really like 90% actually what they feel like.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is, no one would fucking. No one
is helped by a big paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. Of course it is. No one would fucking put up with the things you have to put up with to be an esports personality if you weren't getting paid. In fact, it's almost like they are now the pot of gold at the end of the fucking rainbow of shit and detritus that everyone has to ride to get there. You know, it's like, I said it at the start of the show, you know, with what Pragg's doing. She's walking away from esports to focus, you know, on other things. And I totally respect it. And I think maybe she's been pushed a little bit. But even if she wasn't, you know, I kind of wish that I maybe had done that now. You know, not now, because this is like the first year I've made bank and I'm doing well.
It's too late to save you now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm fucked.
You wish you had done that in like 2006, maybe. When
exactly.
Your whole life was ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly. Not now.
Now you're just lying on the side of the road of esports going, leave me behind. I'll only slow you down.
Yeah, I feel like what was happening was like in 2006, I was still pedaling up the hill and was out of breath, but I was thinking, man, it's going to be great to when I get to go down this hill and go and freewheel. And I'm now at the stage where I've taken my feet off the pedals and I'm having to hold up the handlebars and I'm thinking, holy shit, this is actually going way too fast. That's what I mean. This is going way faster than I thought it would, and I'm actually scared of falling off. But yeah, I think you know, to get back to the point, I think Dota 2 has a real healthy scene, but you're right, it doesn't seem to me we've got on the streaming bandwagon and to take advantage of the opportunities out there. When they do, perhaps that's going to counteract some of the inherent problems that arrive with having a healthy scene. And what I mean by that is StarCraft was killed, in my opinion, by oversaturation. Too much too soon.
I don't know. There was plenty of problems with Blizzard and Casper and things. I wouldn't say it was just killed by that, but yeah, it definitely was a problem. But I mean, oversaturation is as much about how you deal with it as it happening. And just an off sort of tangent. Do you think maybe it is the really good scenes that don't get involved in the streaming so much? Because, for example, the games where there are more inherent problems in the scene, players are more likely to say, "Fuck it, I'll just make bank on Twitch." Like CS:GO and Dota are the two examples I gave of the scenes that just have a really awesome tournament scene that's, you know, getting better, and you know there's a bright future ahead of it. And they're also coincidentally the two games where streaming from the pro level players is absolutely nowhere near the level of other games.
But I think that's down to the fact that
Or do you think
know,
it's coincidence?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's almost coincidental. Like Counter-Strike. Okay, so a lot of the people that have come into CS:GO and been successful, they're either on the very ends of a downslope of a 1.6 career, and 1.6 people were rightly treated like gods and got to go to all the biggest tournaments. Used to get mobbed in China. If people can get their heads around that, that used to happen. When they went out there for WCG and stuff. So they've already had it good.
Yeah,
this is almost
not
like
Crossfire pros, but they're still pretty cool.
Yeah, this is like a second life in a lot of ways. That they should have been over. They should have been done. The fact that CS:GO,
it's like someone who's hit the 50s. Like, you're an attractive young teenage man. All the women were clamoring for you. You get a bit fat. You get a bit old. You're not so much on the market anymore. But you hit 50, 60. People assume you've got a bit of money. You got a bit of swank. It doesn't really matter that you've not got the looks anymore. And suddenly you're rolling in pussy once again.
And that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm hoping for. So
well, you keep up this bank making now, Richard. It will come.
Mate, if I keep
making you will see esports pussy again, Richard, in 20 years.
Let's get there. But no, so you've got that, right? Fucking you make me lose my train of thought. So coming back to it, yeah. So they had, yeah, that's all I can think about, the pussy. So they've had their second chance of a life, but the streaming was never a factor. They never had to do it. They never had to stream their games. It was never an issue. And it's the same with CSS, because it was always treated like the redheaded stepchild of esports. We reluctantly put it on because we know we can get a big online community to prop up everything else we do. ESL used to do this, for example, where literally they would delay payments of CSS tournaments despite it being the biggest online component of their league, and yet they would be paying for StarCraft 2 players to go to tournaments to earn a prize fund and delaying payments from CSS. It was, one of those ridiculous things that they used to do. So, Counter-Strike Source got treated like shit, but again, streaming was never an issue because no one fucking cared about it. So now here we are. Holy shit, we're a big esport. Everyone's like, fuck. Streaming? I think I should, but nobody even knows how to do it. I talk to players all the time.
Oh yeah.
What are you going to do? And they're like, oh, I'll just stream some matchmaking. And I'm like, is that it? And they're going to, well, I guess,
I mean, a good one would be Makalele. He's in the public eye right now. He's the up and comer. He's got all the attentions on him. And like, I tuned into his stream after seeing him in that first major with Nip. I was quite impressed by his play. Tuned into his stream, just playing matchmaking with his friends. It was awful compared to like the showmanship on display in a League of Legends or a StarCraft stream.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because with and I'll defend my Counter-Strike bros. None of us are used to it. No one gave a fuck about it.
No, I understand exactly why. I'm just saying, like, if someone really...
but I'm not saying you it, but there'll be loads of people going, you're all, fucking autists and virgins and retards, and, that's the kind of abuse Counter-Strike people have to put up with. It's like, we've never really had to be in the public eye. It was always just literally what happened at tournaments, and then outside of tournaments, we were kind of just put into a little box and brought out again whenever a tournament rolled around. You did the occasional text interview, or, you got interviewed at an event after you went out of a tournament or after you won it. That was the extent of the need for social media presence in Counter-Strike. I can't speak for Dota intelligently because we've established I don't know enough about the
Chinese Dota 1 pros who've retired towards the end of their careers. There's a much more developed streaming scene in China than the West for Dota, because obviously you know how crazy things are with the competing streaming services in Dota. So some of these old players like 2009, like Xiao 8, they are making the big bank, but none of the Western players. So the question is, do you think the first big CSGO streaming sensations will be these 1.6 players who are still at the top level now, but it's obvious they're not at their peak. They're in the twilight days of their career. They're still competing really heavily now, but I'm thinking Taz, Neo, Forest, Get Right. These guys, when they finally can't even compete with the young bloods, let alone win. Yeah, do you think they'll be the big streaming sensations? One of these guys will step up and really crack the code.
The big streaming sensations we've already got are guys that their success is inexplicable to me to begin with. Guys like Summit, Summit to 1G. I don't understand.
Do you think it's just that no one's good, and if you throw enough shit at the wall, something's going to stick? I mean, there are lots of people who are only interested in Counter-Strike, and they've got to watch something.
Yeah, no, but I definitely agree with that. He's obviously worked hard and cornered the market and stuff. But someone like Fifth Lauren, for example, if Fifth Lauren now wanted to be like the #1 streamer, there's
went about it really smartly.
Yeah, but no, they wouldn't. I don't even think you need to go about it smartly. The beauty of Fifth Lauren, for example, would be that all the people who hated Fifth Lauren would watch his stream, so they could sit in the Twitch chat and spam, fuck you, Fifth
It
Lauren.
would practically be Casey Tron. He could charge people to tell him he was shit and held back Nip for a year.
Right? Exactly.
$1 at a time.
Because
Fifth Lauren, you're crap. You sit on ramp with a Nova. Fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
$10. Bam.
And because this guy also had a lot of people who thought, well, he actually took all of that criticism and ridiculous abuse, even from HLTV to all using, being a conduit for a lot of it, masking statistical analysis articles just to attack him, to try and drive him out of the team because they didn't want to see anybody who they, especially Lurpis, didn't deem good enough to be in a top team. They didn't want to see them succeed and earn money. So they just pushed on him and pushed on him and pushed on him and, riled the community up into this frenzy. So many people found that so distasteful, myself included, as you can probably tell. They would watch to basically offer support. So this guy would already have a fuck ton of support, not to mention the way he handled himself as a caster. I've had the pleasure of working with him in that capacity in the past. This guy was always going to be great in terms of broadcasting whenever he chose to retire. So for Flaren right now, he could actually be one of the first generation you're talking about of incredible popular streamers.
No.
I mean, when it gets to the stage where people are willing to donate just to have a message or appear on your stream that says "fuck off and die," and they've given you $10 just to have that flash up, fuck it, you've made it. Brilliant. I don't know why I don't do that. I'd make $200 next month, or £200, sorry.
The final message to Fifth Lauren then is, for Lauren, hit me up. I got a 2-1 in graphic design in uni. I mean, I can do some stream overlays, and then when you make those dirty Twitch dollars, send some of it my way, brother.
My overlays are better. Get fucked.
Well, look, so just some final points then, Jay, before we finish the show. I think it's interesting what you said about, the whole streaming thing, but we should bring it back to your original point about Dota and, people not necessarily having to travel and not necessarily having to go to every LAN. Is it the case then that we just shouldn't be sympathetic to these people moaning about having a difficult schedule? After all, they're getting paid a salary and they're making a fuck ton of money in prize fund.
If you're on a big team like EG and C9, you have the leverage to make your own schedule, mate. You are in an amazing scene right now, and you just don't even realize it. You need to wake up. Need to see what everyone else sees from the outside. Because, I mean, he complained about tournaments, about he's in the back rooms and things are half ready and they're sort of building the set around the play. Mate, that's just esports. You're behind the veil. The glitz and the glamour, that's for the audience. Nobody's going to be trying to impress you. You're there to play. And in terms of if you've got a bad schedule, if you're not being paid enough, you've got bargaining power, mate. You're an important part of a huge scene. You're worth a lot of money to a lot of people. Just throw your weight around. He's a young guy and he doesn't realize the value of his own career, in terms of the value he provides to sponsors, to organizations, to tournaments. Mm-hmm. You can fix all of these problems. You are in a bed of your own making at the moment. What you can do, almost every significant problem you have the power to change. And it won't even be that difficult. You're stuck in the mentality of players being, these little fish in a little pond, and you don't realize that it'll be quite easy for you to demand exactly what you want.
Okay, well, look, dude, I think, you've made a great point. It was about Dota. I think we've ticked all the boxes today. We've done really well. We've covered a broad base of games. We never talk about Dota on this show. So I definitely want to thank you for that, and no doubt you will call again in the future.
Yeah, I know. It's my favourite esport. I'm always looking for it.
Why are you always playing League, then?
I'm not always playing League. I played some League.
It's not what I've heard.
Is it?
I've heard you really pushing hard to hit plat.
Am I? Fuck me. I think I've played 10 solo queue games this year just to do my placements, see if I could get gold in 10 games and get that lovely skin.
I don't know. This sounds it's a bit defensive for me, mate.
I ended up in silver 1 80 LP.
There you go. Mate, I've got a poster for you behind me, the fucking Silver Surfer. It's time. Yeah. End it, uninstall. No, I'm kidding. I love you.
I had 3 games where we started off 4v5 from the very beginning. It was horrible.
Yeah. That's what I've been saying for years with my bronze 3 account on an A. But anyway, look.
Mate, I'm shit. But I might have been able to hit gold. That's all I'm saying.
Mate, you can be
illusions.
shit and hit fucking diamond too. Like it's all about the streak. You play for the streak.
I love the LCS players who are like, oh yeah, well this guy's sort of only got 50 points in Challenger, so he's basically a total dog toad.
Yeah, he's dog shit. Yeah, it's like fuck me, man. Anyway, look, it was great to hear from you again. Not a week goes by where I don't miss your voice. Yeah, I know. I was gonna say
one of them you dodged me, you moved the show, and I had no idea. And then one of them I was just really ill. I just couldn't even get out of bed, mate. It's horrible. But you know, I'm glad I got back in for the end of the year. Good to speak to you again.
Yeah, take care. Have a Merry Christmas, mate.
Cheers, you too. Bye bye.
All the best, brother. So there we go. That's the end of the show. And just to let you know, the Bronze 3 just happens to be my NA account. It's not my level at all.
Shit.
Dude, I'm gold shit though.
I'm flat shit, mate.
Fuck off, are you?
I am. Check my account. Bendtner US. Get fucked.
You're gonna get so fucking spammed with abuse now. Like it's not bad enough that you've got all the callers DDoS.
I just hope no one recognizes me when I'm playing.
Everyone's gonna find some sort of fucking locator now online and just fucking DDoS you for the rest of your life. But anyway, well done on hitting plat. Well done.
Did it on the last hour of the season. No big deal.
You know, I think it adds a lot of weight to what I've kind of known for a while, that people that haven't had sexual activity do make better League of Legends players.
Fuck you.
That's no, dude. Pot noodle and a wank and platinum. Well done. I've got a fedora up here.
Look at the little toad doll in the background that you put your dick into every night.
Well done, my lady. That's my girlfriend. Leave Toad out of this. Well done, my lady. That's you, man. Anyway,
the fucking stripper pole next to it. That's disguised as a fucking weightlifting thing.
Goatsy gave me that back in the 90s. So anyway, I think we'll kill the show there, shall we? Before we start talking about Goatsy, it was a good show, Sam. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really good. Do you like my new microphone? Do I sound professional now? Because you were bitching about it for a few weeks, and everyone was.
Well, yeah. Now all I can hear is you echoing. But at least I can hear your ridiculous voice when you go, "Get fucked." My overlays. Get fucked.
I've been doing this a lot. Is this creepy?
I can smell the Cheetos from here, man.
I might just unmute myself.
Speaking of, because people are saying, because I did the Fedora tip, everyone's talking about Vortage. I'm just going to drop this out here, Sam, before we kill the show. I have interviewed Vortage. No, I really have.
Is it a video interview?
No, it's not video. It's written. I think for obvious reasons. A troll loses a bit of its mystique if you put him on video and you see he's a real person. So I have interviewed Vortage. So that's I can't wait to publish that.
It's going on Daily Dot.
Yeah.
How did your editor allow that?
I framed it with the editor is. I said to him, I've interviewed the biggest troll in League of Legends. And he just went, "Oh, that kind of sounds interesting." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It sure is." So I'm looking forward to publishing that.
And then it gets 10k page views. He's like, "What the fuck was this mess?"
It could be the interview that ends my career. This is when it turns out it's not even the real Vortage. It's one of his impersonators or something, which is probably what he'd say. So, but anyway, it was a good show. You did very good work today, apart from displaying the names of all of the callers.
Skype's fault, man. Set up a studio and it won't happen. Buy me a studio, mixer, and a fucking professional production.
Maybe we should do a Kickstarter, mate.
Alright, let's do it. We'll do Trash Talk live from DreamHack next time, live from the Twitch after party.
Yeah, it'll just be me and you asleep in a hotel room, having my own party, mate, as you put it. Anyway, thanks for your effort, Sam. It's appreciated. God bless you. Thanks to all of the callers. It was a good show tonight, especially the Reddit moderator Hansgen, who called in. I think that was a big part of the debate. I'm sure a big part of the show. Sorry, that people will focus on. Thanks to all of the viewers and all of the subs who have enabled me to make £100 in dirty esports money. I really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow, I think, with First Blood, all things being well. Looks like we're going to have a representative of Team Coast to talk about their return to the LCS. That's the plan anyway. We'll keep you posted about that. Until then, all that remains to be said is, have a nice night. miladies. Peace.